everyone. Welcome to the November 21st, 2023 meeting of the Northfield Selectboard. Alex Meisner and Bernie Boudreau are not here, so I will call this meeting to order. Tonight's scheduled appointments, we have our first one with Mallory Sullivan, Grant Development Director, Economic Development Community Survey and Distribution / Outreach Plan. Hi, Mallory.
Good evening.
Hello. You'll have it in your packet if you...
Nice. Thank you.
So I'm happy to share with you the Economic Development Community Survey that has been the result of a couple months of workshopping, refining, and the purpose of it is to collect perspectives on economic development in town, to get some data-backed insights about various components of the town's economy, employment, where people shop, where they would like to work or shop, and how that relates to the opportunities that are in town. This survey will be open to anybody, especially targeted to residents, although if folks from outside of town would like to complete it, they're more than welcome to. It collects residency information on the town you're from. Households are invited to participate. Every member of a household is invited to participate. That includes kids, although I'll say some kids might need a little bit of help interpreting some of the questions that are a little bit more complex. So this draft was created, the first draft was created back in the summertime. The Economic Development Advisory Committee provided feedback and workshopped to what we have now, which is a fairly succinct but also fairly thorough questionnaire of these economic development topics. So the plan is to open the survey on the 27th, which is Monday, and then have it open through the end of January. You know, the timing here with the holidays coming up can be a little tricky, so we want to make sure that folks have plenty of time to see it. And the outreach plan, I'll just kind of jump into that, and then if you have any questions or comments, I can respond to those. But the outreach plan, the survey will be available both online. That will be the preferred format if respondents have access to the internet or can get down to the library, but we'll also have paper copies available at Town Hall, Senior Center, and Library. We'll advertise this in kind of the mediums you would expect on the town website through a town email blast. I would definitely support if anybody would like to share it on Nextdoor, and in the next Town Hall newsletter, we'll include it there, as well as some more maybe targeted stakeholders. And then we'll print some flyers. I have a mock-up here that we'll post around town, bulletin boards, library, town hall, everywhere else.
That looks good.
Excellent. So what are you hoping to get out of the survey? I mean, just like a game plan for a certain time frame, or like where do we go next?
We're hoping to get some kind of data-backed insights into what people want in town, and then that can inform future projects that we pursue. It might include grant-funded projects or others that we pursue. So this, I think we all hear a lot of ideas out there, and so this will help us to put those into kind of a concrete analysis, understanding what are maybe individual concerns versus consensus desires or needs.
And you can speak a little bit to the two RFPs, those two projects, and how this might actually inform that work.
Yeah, so two of the grants that we received this fall, the Community Planning Grant for the Business Park Feasibility Study and the Commonwealth Places Grant for a placemaking community engagement process and plan, those will kick off in February. And so I think that ending this at the end of January, we'll be able to provide this feedback to support those processes as well. You'll see some of the questions relate to topics that intersect with both of those. So this will kind of help as we're kicking those off. We already have a little bit to work with. So that's kind of the logic behind the timing too.
Awesome.
I don't think it's going to take 10 minutes. I just looked at it. Yeah.
I think some of the open-ended questions,
That might take
some of
a
those
little,
might
yeah.
need a little bit more thought if they're not things you're thinking about all the time. But I would say that's the maybe conservative estimate is 10 minutes, maybe closer to 5.
Yeah. No, I think open-ended questions are harder to process, but my guess is you're gonna get more out of them. And people will, it'll be a little bit more freeform and rather than trying to fit their answers to the questions, they'll just type it all in and we'll have to sort it out later, but yeah, this looks good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was discussion on that and trying to find a balance between
Yeah, no,
open-ended
there's a nice
and
balance.
response, provided. So we're hoping that this kind of allows people to think freely and to share their thoughts openly.
Yeah, and you've got some visioning in there as well as concrete stuff in the present, so it looks like you guys have covered all the bases, in my estimation. Yay.
So I had a question just so that citizens watching can understand what will happen. So this data will be collected, and then what happens to the data? Are you the one evaluating it? Just so that people can understand what you're doing with it.
Sure. So we're collecting it. If we don't have a plan to publicize it necessarily, although we may very well do that, synthesize it and publicize, but it will. So we will have all of the data. As I mentioned, some of it may be used to inform some of those processes, but I see this as part of a greater economic development visioning exercise and planning exercise. So once people respond to this, we very much thank them for their time in doing that. And we would use this to inform prospective goals and projects that we're shaping. So some of those align with some of the projects that we're working on. Some of this will also be used to provide justification for future grant projects. I think I've probably mentioned it before that a lot of the times the state and federal government, if they're providing funding for an initiative, they want to know that you've really got a need for it. And so that having this data will definitely be instrumental on our grant applications.
We're running into that on the in the Shell Bridge discussion, because the economic development stuff is older, like 10 years. Well, project's been going on for a long time, so it makes sense. But yeah, I think that. So, are you going to synthesize to and maybe report back on like kind of the highlights, not necessarily all the data, but
sure, I think
kind of
we
the
can,
highlights of
Some pretty graphs.
Yeah, I think we can
an infographic,
synthesize
perhaps.
the themes.
Since we're on a roll.
Never mind.
I think you're going to have some themes that come out of it, so it would be interesting to see. And my guess would be one of the themes will be gas station, because that's always a
Restaurant.
theme. Restaurant for sure. That will be one of mine. Just, but it would be nice to dive down below the top two that we kind of all know just from like walking the streets and talking to people.
Yeah, I'd be happy to come back to and report or to put something together that can be shared
Digested.
with everyone.
Yeah. Great.
And I have one suggestion on the paper that you held up. That one. The poster, I would suggest making it super accessible and something that encourages folks, because economic development can be kind of a loaded term. So something that says, hey, you can contribute to, our future decisions by telling us that things are important. Just really accessible.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think if it looks too professionally, sometimes people are like, oh, that's not my lane, or something like that. So.
And you've got a big QR code right in the middle. Is that okay?
Yeah, that'll take you to the online version of the survey.
Great.
Excellent.
Nice.
Anything else for Mallory?
If you're all good with it, just
Yeah.
letting her know that she can go ahead
So you're going to post it again on the 27th,
Monday.
Monday. So it's going to be on the town website on the front page as well, right?
Right.
You guys, I've noticed there's been a few more things on the front page this year, so it's looking spiffy and informative.
We should definitely put it in our announcements and some agendas
Oh, like ongoing.
to go. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right, we
since
made a
it'll be
note.
open for a while. Yeah.
Certainly by the last meeting you have in January, which is about a week before we think it's going to be done, you've made a note to make sure you make that announcement, certainly, because that gives one last week for people who
Big push.
slipped their mind, just didn't get around to it, thought they might.
Yeah. Is this going in the recorder too?
I can definitely share it with you.
Yeah.
I'm wondering
And
if we
posting
do.
around town, right, at the library.
I'm wondering if some kind of press thing right after the
Yeah,
holidays to talk about the kickoff of the grants, because they're kind of economic based,
yeah.
and the survey,
Yeah.
like together as like a press release saying, hey,
Yep.
Northfield's doing a deep dive starting early this year into this,
Yeah.
because we've been reviewing the RFQ for the 2 grant right now that she's going to release in the next couple of weeks, maybe next week, to start getting responses due in January. It's a holiday time, so we're kind of giving them a little more time
Right,
to get some of the consultants on board for those 2 projects she named. So it might be a good time to,
yeah.
maybe we put it out right away, maybe I don't know, we can talk about
we can-
when the best time to announce that would be. Maybe the press release is a good time now because it alerts people. Well,
Yeah.
talk about it.
Think about that.
Mention all 3 things because they're all kind of economic, downtown development
See,
based.
that's the luxury when you're proactive. You're not like up against any sort of time frame. You're like, yeah, we could do it next week or the week after.
Yeah, one of them we have to
or-
wait because we haven't got the
Yeah.
contract from the state, but the other one we can do sooner.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that would fit together nicely.
good. I like
Is
it.
there one of those holiday things going on in Northfield this year, like the special day in Northfield that Natapa used to do? Is anyone anything about that? Are you in
They've
regular
had a couple
contact
of-
with them?
I don't believe Special Day is happening this year.
It's
I
not.
know that there were some of the church holiday fairs that
Yeah.
were
I think they
being
already
staffed.
did
I think they
one.
happened, one with 3 churches did some.
But you know how they had like the
Yeah.
horse and carriage and all that
They
stuff?
already
They're
did
not-
the horse and carriage, and I think they went up Highland. Didn't they go up Highland? Yeah. That was like, cause that was on.
I thought
It was
for the
like
three- that was
same
for the
day as the
350
Holly
though.
Bear. It was the Holly Bear.
Yeah,
That same
exactly.
day, they were going out of the Trinitarian Church with the
Oh, okay.
the
Yeah.
horses.
Let's say it'd
not
be great
down
with all those
really
people here
early.
to get the survey out. To some of those
Right,
people, you know.
right.
Yeah.
But-
One thing, Mallory, on this, I think it's really important for citizens to know that they don't have to put their name on if they don't want, and you've put optional. And also, you might, since this is a draft, you might add, if we get multiple from one household, that might skew it, which is fine, but did anybody else from your household fill this out, or how many people from your household filled it out, or something like that? Just from a data perspective, it might be useful to know. So,
Okay.
just a
Thanks, I'll consider
positive
that.
suggestion.
All right.
Something's going on December, I think it's 16th,
Oh, looking for,
some kind of craft and grip dip fair.
At the
Okay.
elementary school,
Yeah.
Yes.
I think they do that.
December
Yep.
16th.
They do that every year.
Okay.
So that might be a good hot
The
spot to
annual
get
holiday
community.
fair
Yeah, anywhere we
is
can publicize it.
December 2nd
December 2nd.
at the school.
So there's more than one event. Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
Oh, the December 2nd is when they do the wreaths. You can buy a wreath at the elementary school.
Okay, so maybe we'll try to,
Yeah, maybe
They
they
Get
had
a
to
couple
move,
of
they had
spots
move
to
it
hand
from
out.
this week to
Yeah.
December 2nd.
okay,
Yeah.
Oh, and we
Take
could
any
put it on the
opportunity.
senior center too, right?
yes.
Yeah, we'll be down there.
Captive audience.
Great. Thank you, Mallory.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Happy Thanksgiving.
You
too.
Too.
Oh, that's good.
So we got about 10 minutes before the next scheduled appointment.
This is
So
so good though. We've been talking about this
Yeah.
economic development for since I've been on the board. Yay.
it'd be great to get some of that data.
And we
Looks
really,
good.
we really hashed it out and talked a lot about it. So
Yeah.
that's a culmination of a lot of folks' work.
Good job.
We'll jump down to citizens' concerns. Nobody?
Honey?
No concerns. Let's do a review and approval of the warrants. If I could get a motion for the November 15th payroll warrant for $75,458.59.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Abstain?
Oh, I'm sorry. Aye.
Aye, okay.
I apologize. It's like,
A pregnant pause.
no.
Please have a motion for the November 15, 23 vendor warrant of $162,265.95. This includes the health insurance, boat ramp grant, and sewer collection system.
In case anybody's wondering, that boat ramp grant is technically a grant we got from the state, but it's about the cleanup. And the only way for fish and wildlife to do it without a huge process was to give the money to the town, and then the town contracts with the subcontractors.
Oh, interesting.
So it's called a grant, but it really was all designated for the cleanup for the boat ramp.
And the subcontractors were chosen how?
Well, Wiggins, there's very strict rules on it because of contamination issues. So they gave us the subcontractors that were eligible. So Wiggins was the only one that's local enough to come in with a price.
Okay.
And then our fire department did some work, and then putting up barricades and all. So some of that money came to us because we actually used some of our resources in coordinating that all off when it was happening. So actually, we were one of the subcontractors.
And the amount for the sewer collection system here, what is that?
On the
It's listed
oh,
under
this is.
vendor
I
one.
think it's part of the.
Is it the ARPA?
Yeah, no, it's part of the
EMS?
asset management plan. Was it
AMP?
asset?
Yeah.
AMP.
Could I
Listen.
see it? Can I look at it real quick?
The warrant? I don't. We have it.
Oh,
It went because she had it last week to cut the checks.
got it.
So she's already got. She had to get it back.
So it's done.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, still on a, we got a motion and a second? Yes?
Yes.
No.
No.
Oh,
No.
motion.
Did we get a motion?
So moved.
Motion
I'll second.
and a second.
We went right to
We
discussion.
went right to discussion.
No, that's okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Review and approval of the minutes for October 3rd, 23, the executive session. Those look good to me when I saw them.
And I need to
envelope.
abstain from that. I wasn't present.
Okay,
And you can't pass them.
so we can't pass that
Oh,
one.
shoot.
Let's
We're
move
gonna
on.
table those two, right?
Yeah.
Both of them?
Yeah.
Both the executive session?
Okay.
Okay. The November 7th, 23 minutes of the open session.
I had one little edit on page 6 of 10
Oh, hang on.
under discussion. Kern stated that she felt really uncomfortable saying that the dog who bit somebody is a nuisance. I'd just like to add the words rather than dangerous. So my point was that the difference between nuisance and dangerous.
Got it.
Is that right at the top of the page?
Second
It's right
bullet.
here.
Second,
So-
third bullet.
Discussion.
Oh.
Somebody is a nuisance rather than dangerous.
All right, so do we vote on the amendment first and then
I think you could vote it as amended.
just vote it as amended? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I move that we approve the November 7th, 2023 minutes as amended.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Interim select board meetings. We did not have any.
Yes, we did.
We did.
Oh,
We
We
the
didn't do
Yes.
anything, but.
you had the
That's
six
right. We had the
town,
6 town.
but we didn't because you didn't call the meeting to order and there was no deliberation.
We did call the meeting.
We called
to
it to
order.
meeting to order, and they didn't listen when we said we were adjourning,
And
but
we
we still
adjourned.
did.
I seconded.
So
So
I
we
was
did
on
call it
the-
to order.
I was on the other side of the room, so, but we didn't discuss, we didn't.
No.
We didn't have
We
any
didn't
discussion.
have any deliberation or discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Heath spoke, and so I'm
Yeah.
on the open meeting. I'm not sure how that.
no, I think he spoke as a comment as a citizen, but we were going to make a note on because it's posted as minutes. We were going to make a note on in terms of minutes saying that the board
Who was present and all that.
and had no deliberation,
Okay.
Yep.
so that we answer the minutes so they don't sit there empty.
Yep.
So
On
do
the-
you need who attended? Because
It was the
just
three of you.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, you
Yeah.
got it, all
We knew
right.
that.
Yeah, the only thing is I only asked questions of them, which I feel were very poorly answered, which is the MO.
Yeah.
Whenever we go to these regionalization meetings.
We can talk more about that.
Yeah, do we have that on our,
Well, isn't that? I mean, it's a meeting that was attended, so
Yeah, but it's not
But
listed.
but we don't have it as an agenda, so we
No.
can't
No.
discuss it in
We should
depth.
actually talk, put it on the proposed
Okay.
agenda
Yeah, we
topic.
should, because
that right
I think
now.
it's time to start that.
Yeah, and we're supposed to get back to them on whether or not they're going to come to an individual select board meeting
Okay.
or whatever follow-up we feel is warranted.
I'll do that right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Meetings and events attended by select board members. Sarah?
I went to the sewer meeting, the sewer commission meeting. I went to the Grandin Water Public meeting. Attended Conservation Commission, and the PBRS Environmental Education Advisory Group, which is a group that's meeting quarterly. And then I met with representatives of that environmental education separately to help with the district TIC protocol because of my research in that area.
Oh. Is that a PVRS committee, like a school committee thing? Or?
The PBRS, the Environmental
school
Education
thing.
Advisory, it was
Oh.
community, so it was
okay.
people from all over, and
Okay.
it was just about how, it was about bringing other voices in for environmental education.
Okay, just curious.
Oh, you could announce, I'm sorry to back up 1 second, I need to interrupt you, that you did get these cards for the 6-town regionalization
Yes.
planning with all their materials, and we do have them here at Town Hall. It's got a QR code. We have them scattered about Town Hall, so anybody who's interested in actually getting the materials. we're
For the
happy.
6-town regionalization,
Correct.
yeah.
So I'll say that
Yeah.
since you mentioned that.
Great.
Okay. We can hand those out to anybody, we have them.
Okay.
Great.
I did not have any extra meetings or events.
I did. Let's see, we had the Community Preservation Committee, and then the Community Preservation Committee had a public forum. They had a really good turnout for that. And Lara Dubin did a fantastic presentation. If you ever want somebody who's organized and can do a PowerPoint effectively, she is the woman. 6-town regionalization meeting, EMS regionalization task force, and that's it.
All right. We
I
only got
can-
about 4 minutes.
I can start with mine and stop whenever they come.
Okay.
First thing on here, the Newtown report / budget book. It will look a lot like this. It's going to change a little. So this is a, it has department.
This is new.
It is completely new. It has department reports. It has mission statements for each
Ooh.
department, and it gives budget information for all the departments and the town. There's goals and objectives for all the departments built into each department report. It's a template. There'll be a metrics section, what they
This is
typically
Newbury, but-
reported. It's another town's example. Chosen by the departments to report annually, so their metrics will be in there. And then it go to their budget, so their budget will be attached. So the idea is to flow from their mission to their goal, to their accomplishments, to their goals for this year, their goals for next year.
To the
Their
budget?
metrics to the budget, so that it supports the whole idea of how their goals,
Holy.
objectives, and mission support the budget that they're requesting. There's
Holy
a whole budget
shootski.
section in the beginning that will talk about it. There's lots of graphs showing, and we're gonna have a template, so each year we will just move the information, last year's will become the next this, and then they will put the new ones on the end. There's an organizational chart, which will break down the whole town, but then it will be their thing right on the top of theirs, will show their organizational chart.
Hugely important.
And
This
then,
is
and then there will also
amazing.
be an appendix that will continue to include, the committee and board appointees and the town meeting results, because we want those historically preserved in our
So
town
this is going to
report.
be online, and
Sure.
and we can produce copies.
We
Yeah,
will.
but producing copies is pretty expensive.
We're gonna
Yeah.
have to produce them. People are gonna want, this is gonna take the place of the town report we produced annually. So, yeah. we're
Can we
gonna-
mitigate some of the color or something? You know what I mean? Just keep
I don't think
expenses.
the color's gonna make much sense, but we're gonna get quotes. I mean,
Okay.
we'll work on it, but I think, we're
Instead
gonna scrape
of
it together this year, but I think in general, we're gonna up the budget for it, but I think it's worth it. I think people will get way more out of this material, than they get out of just that town report that just has everybody's little,
yeah,
Right,
This is
because
what we
it's
did,
just
and
wall
then
of text.
went to this, and we did 5
Yeah.
of these, and so the idea is, and it would also give people,
Well, it connects the budget with the
Goals
department
and-
or the
yes.
committee, which is different than the town report. So
Correct.
that's
And
huge.
since it's going to be ongoing, can we do, like on your electric bill, where it says this time last month, this month last year, or last year, can we
Like a
have an
trend?
ongoing, trend lines
well,
and
if you
stuff
look
like
in the
that?
beginning, there's different sections, there's a budget message, and we can tailor some of the reports in there we'd have to pick which report we want. Do we want like total budget? Do we want tax rate? There's all sorts of metrics that have to be chosen. That's a section I'm working on between now and Monday. So it'll be the start of that
Cool.
as a draft. So there's all sorts of different metrics that will go into that, including breaking it down by what part of the budget goes to
Well,
school.
congratulations. I know you've thought about this for like the last 5
Right.
years, so
we'll
congratulations.
see.
And congratulations to the citizens, because this will make it easy for, anything that will make it easier for folks to understand what's going
Yeah.
on is what
Just-
we want.
And
Yeah.
the town departments who will probably hate me by
That's
the
what
end of
we've
the
all
process, but, because
Oh,
I'm pushing them through it. But at the same
Thank
time,
you.
it will be easier in future years because they'll have a template.
Yeah,
So they will do a template and it will
I'm
go forward.
psyched about that. Thank you.
I'm still working on where to put committee reports, because this one doesn't do it, but we have a few committees that report regularly, and we want to make sure that we have a space for them. Not every committee, but some committees like to do a small report, and we'll want to make a space in there for that.
Awesome.
So this is the project we're working on right now,
Excellent.
one of them.
Cool. One of many.
All right, we are right at 6:30, so we can start our 6:30 appointment with the Pioneer Valley Regional School District representatives. Raina, Patricia, Jordan.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm sending regrets from Raina Das to our chair,
Oh,
whose basement flooded. I just got a call.
no.
Yeah, so they are figuring out how to drain and move things. up
On a
there.
very cold night.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Can I have one of these? I gotta get in shape. This is something we're gonna talk about. You do those and I'll do these.
Sorry, Phil.
Oh, thank you. If you, I can just pass
Thanks,
it around.
Jordan.
Three, yeah, that'll cover that. And then she'll need one eventually to go with the
Out there.
minutes.
One more. Thanks, Jordan.
But, and I'll take the
Oh, wait.
spares for the other committee members.
Oh, thanks. Here.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Two will go there.
5, 6, 7. That's the budget. Calendar.
Oh, do you want to?
You only need 5.
Okay, here's 5. We just wanted to make sure you had stuff.
Well, there's more, yeah.
That's capital assessments, the redone ones.
One, and then I'm taking the 2 for the people who aren't here.
Oh, we already have this.
There should be,
This is in our packet.
Yeah, that was in the packet.
Okay, let's get some of the people out here.
Let's go in here. District agreement, we need that right now.
there you go.
I think
Okay.
they said there's something new in that.
Oh, yeah, you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, so some people are missing.
Yeah,
That's okay.
but we are broadcasting
Oh,
recorded,
sorry.
so they
Great.
can.
And I
Thank you.
sent you some, you're probably in the meeting. I sent you this presentation as a PDF in slide shape and also as this shape.
Okay,
for
yes,
everyone
that's
to
why it
post
looks
it.
the same. You were like, isn't this the same thing? Okay.
Woo.
Okay, so where would we like to start?
Keith, how would you feel if I were to give a brief overview to provide some context for the financial remarks that Jordan will share?
That would be wherever you think is best to start us on the road with all the
Great.
stuff that we have in front of us.
Super.
It is your floor.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, thank you, Selectboard. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, town people. Thank you, Michelle Geruso, School Committee Vice Chair, representative from Leiden. And thank you, newest school committee member, Sylvia Cummings. Thank you so much for
Hey.
being here.
Sylvia.
Bernie, thank you for representing FinCom. Nice to see you, as always. Okay, I will be brief. I'm Patricia Kinsella. I'm the superintendent of schools, and I'm a Northfield resident. So we are entering budget development season.
There we go.
We thought it might be helpful to share a big picture context for this year's budget development. And that is, we are at a happy juncture up on F. Sumner Turner Drive. For the past 2+ years since I arrived in the district, my main focus has been on operations and on, as part of operations, money. Now we've got this fantastic full-time on-site director of finance and operations. What a difference. My background is actually on the other side of the house. My background is principally in teaching and learning. So for me, it's been a fantastic opportunity to learn, focus on operations. We are not out of the woods, so much more to do. And we are definitely at the point where we can shift some focus. I now have a full administrative team, including Jordan and 2 other senior level directors, student services, teaching and learning. We can now focus on programming. And so I want to share just a couple bits of information about what that looks like. So you've heard about the auxiliary gym. So we are hoping, so there's our big gym with the nice new resurfaced floor. Next to it is a very large room. 3 times this room? 2.5 times?
Yeah.
It's very big.
I don't think I've ever been in it.
Well, that's probably a good thing, B, because it's been a bit of an embarrassment.
Oh,
It's been filled with stuff
okay.
and broken, donated
Equipment and
sports
stuff?
equipment,
Yeah.
donated 20 years ago that was used when we got it, not maintained. Well, what I wanted to say at first was thank you for hanging in with us. Selectboard, you've hung in with us over the past years, and now the good stuff happens. We're going to be inviting Heath Cummings in January to our grand opening, because by the end of January, that auxiliary gym, we believe, according to our resident strength and conditioning expert, will be one of the best equipped strength and conditioning high school sites in Western Massachusetts. We're going to have a big grand opening. We're going to invite people up to do lessons. We're going to have the big kids do basketball clinics with the little kids. Maybe Heath will come into a little whatever. I said the buff amongst
Test
us
out
will do something. No, for real, we're gonna have a big party because
Oh, no,
this
I was
is a
just-
major opening.
Yeah.
So the auxiliary gym has been cleaned out. Like literally, this stuff has gone. We got our first approval from school committee last week for $35,000 or so. Thank you, school committee. For the first round of purchases, Jordan will bring the second contract for review. Next meeting, we have to have the commissioner approve. In addition to setting up a beautiful strength and conditioning center that we can use during the school day to improve the student experience, that our student athletes can use after school and on weekends to work on their fitness, we are taking a second underutilized space, and in that space we will be creating a mini skateboard center with skateboard ramps built by students in the woodshop, and a dance and fitness studio for very little money. So by the end of January, we'll have these wonderful improvements to the Pioneer facility. We are doing things like, we are going to look at the feasibility of opening an on-site childcare center. 2 school committee members and I went to the joint conference last week of the State Superintendents and School Committee Association. The Burlington Public Schools did an amazing session on their on-site childcare that has been running for 15 years at no cost to the district. No cost to the district. It operates on a teacher schedule. It's open to staff of all kinds, grandparent staff who have grandkids who need care. Once staff have taken up all the spots they need, they open it up to town workers. It's competitive in terms of its pricing structure for infant, 2-year-old, toddler, pre-K and K, and they pay at or above local wages for childcare. So we're just going to look. We're going to see. We got approval this morning. We got word this morning that our Part A application for a career innovation pathway in environmental education was approved by the state. We've got Part A done. Now we're on to Part B. We don't know, but if we are successful, that would be a $125,000 grant. That will allow us to offer our students terrific opportunities in environmental education. Northeast Paving has agreed to be our lead partner in that effort. We are so grateful to them. Let's see, just a couple more things. Just beginning to talk about opening up a business incubator, student entrepreneurship. How do you start or run a business in Franklin County? I had a great call yesterday with the executive director of the Franklin County Chamber of Commerce. We've been putting out feelers to other people. There's even a little bit of talk about maybe there's a way for members of the admin team to rotate in and out as guest lecturers in that class with our students. The general idea is we want to make it possible for our kids to earn a living in this county while also contributing to the economic stability and prosperity of this county. So, there's so much work to do in terms of developing a long-term vision for the district. We've talked a lot about the environment. We've got that incredible space up there. I have a feeling that thinking about the district, conceiving of it as a little economic engine, could benefit all of us. I believe, and I'd be interested to hear if you would agree, we might be the largest employer in our 3 towns. We have a payroll of approximately 180 people, and I've tried to think about who might have a larger payroll. If we're not the largest, we've got to be among the largest employers in the district. Let's see how we can keep leveraging our $17 million budget, both to support our kids and their families, and come up with programming that creates a multiplier effect. So you can probably tell I'm pretty energized. I'm so excited. You have stuck with us through the hardest times. Thank you. And this is the year where we can begin to shift into programming, really looking at the quality of the education that we provide, supporting our educators with improved professional development. We're going to have to do a lot with curriculum over the next 5 or 6 years. Jordan will talk to you about, we've got some money put aside. That's the big picture. We've been working on operations. We're ready to shift into programming, and Jordan will talk with you about what the money looks like to do all this.
So, just one clarifying point, based on how we did this last year. So are those the highlights for the FY25 budget development? Or
Yeah.
these are things that are
Just giving you a teaser
some
of
themes?
these are things when we think about switching over into a focus on programming versus having to spend almost all of our energy on operations.
Yeah,
These are the kinds of exciting ideas.
directions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily, it's just kind of setting the tone based on what some of the exigencies
Yeah.
of the last couple of years. Now you're looking at things
Absolutely.
that are a little bit more free form and creative, it sounds
That are
like.
focused on the front of the house. So if you think about like a
Yeah.
restaurant back front,
Yeah,
now I can turn my attention to the front of the house, and now I've got staff
to more
in place.
development kinds of
Yes.
activities, got it.
Yes.
And so is this costing, it sounds like there's no cost, just because I had my
Mhm.
brain kind of tuned to FY24 versus FY25, so no particular cost for FY24 versus 25, you're just looking at what the possibilities are and coming
The
back.
auxiliary gym, that money we've got, FY24, we're not coming to you for money for that. Childcare, I'm gonna send out a survey next month. This will
Okay.
be a year and a half down the road.
Gotcha.
But that wouldn't be a big startup cost because we don't have to build a center,
Yeah.
The innovation career pathway, they would give us money for that one.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just thinking, and what was the auxiliary gym, was like 30K or 33K?
It's going to be, Jordan, about 65 altogether.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yep. B, that
Yeah.
includes a new floor,
Yeah,
which will be half kind of smoothish and half turf.
Mm-hmm.
Removal of all the old damaged equipment and installation of new equipment. And the equipment, you're probably better at saying this, or Heath, it's not all Nautilus type stuff. It's these more
Resistance?
spare looking, how do you describe it?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess similar to what people would be accustomed to in more modern gyms. You've got like the power racks, right, where you can do numerous exercises, but obviously squats. You can support, doing more stuff that you're actually active and moving. Similar to some of the ideas of CrossFit, but more, free weights and incorporating movement rather than, like the old style sit-it, like doing
Static.
the
A
curls,
machine with a single
sitting
use
down.
to it.
gotcha.
So, a lot more modern strength and conditioning and not very many machines at all. Maybe some stuff for cardio, but certainly a more active space that could also be appropriate for a classroom setting.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
So this,
And you're going to have all those that capability and space and equipment. Who's going to be running it? Do you have somebody that is?
Our new physical education teacher is Nick Adams. He is the state director for the National High School Strength and Conditioning Association. So we now have a resident expert on adolescent strength and fitness and conditioning.
Nice.
So he will be doing it during the day. And then I don't want to I don't want to overpromise. And wouldn't it be nice if these wonderful refurbished spaces had some community use?
Yeah.
And I need to be careful not to make a commitment that we're not able, capacity-wise, to fulfill just yet.
Well, does that mean, because the rec commission has used the weight training room, does that mean that's gone or replaced?
No, it just I don't know what if they're so. Bree, I have to tell you, when I found that out, when I first, you would have been. It was a really it was not a dignified space, and when I found out that our community was going in there and using it, I was honestly embarrassed. So, yeah, we want our school to be a community center, as it were, and I need to be careful of not getting too excited. So we want to get the space up and running. Let's do a big grand opening. Let's have people in and see, and then let's figure out how we make sure we are managing it appropriately, that kids are in it only at times when they're supervised, and then let's figure out how we share it in a responsible way.
So just maybe this is more for Jordan. So I don't remember this coming up last year for FY24. So where did the $65K come from?
He's going to get to that during the presentation.
Excellent. Okay.
Taking off my presenting sweater right now to get ready. It's like a boxer with the robe. So,
Roll up your sleeves.
Well, yeah,
Let's go.
I'm ready now. So Patricia did a great introduction because obviously the pragmatic budget stuff is wonderful and filled with good news. But also you want to,
Stay abreast.
what's the exciting new stuff, new shiny stuff that we're going to be able to do with all these funds we've mobilized. So, so some of the stuff we're going to talk about is the outcomes from the October 26, 2023 school committee meeting. So we want to get everybody apprised of what exactly happened. Budget development for FY25, of course, the process and where we're at. The facilities master plan, obviously, because that's a big investment that's providing a lot of great information and community involvement, so we want to provide an update there. And Andrea reasonably and smartly asked us to talk a little bit about potential capital projects, so we want to talk about those as well.
Yep.
And that's on the small side, right? These are kind of small, short-term, the type of stuff that we've been doing year on year, type of capital projects, rather than what might come out of the facilities master planning process. So these are kind of the more, what do we need to keep the place running for next year type of idea, rather than huge projects that might come out of the facilities master plan. So that's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to try to stop. I sometimes tend to just continue on, but I will try to make sure there's space in there to allow you all to ask questions, points of clarity. So every few slides here, I will try to stop. But similar to Patricia, I'm excited for it, so I will try to get energized and get going. But feel free to interrupt me anytime. I will not. And it'll be good to rest. So we'll jump in. So what happened at the October 26th meeting? I'm on, I guess, what is the third slide now. So the summary of the 1026 school committee meeting. We were able to make a decision and get school committee approval to pay off the state note, return total funds to towns through a couple different methods that we'll talk about of $740,214, and make key investments in the district of $615,000 in some really exciting areas. And some of that is what Patricia's already talking about, some of it's in addition, and we'll talk about sources of funds. A reasonable question is, how are we able to do all this? How are we able to reduce assessments and return money? What has happened? What's transpired that's made this possible? And all these bullet points, and increased state support, right? The state now is aware of the challenges of Western Massachusetts and rural schools in general, and providing more rural aid and more transportation aid. So that certainly has helped, both on the revenue side in this year, but on the rural aid as a state grant, that's increased by a ton over the last few years. Pandemic-related vacancies, right? We haven't always been able to fill every position. That's certainly coming out of the pandemic. That's been a contributing factor. some positive administrative capability type things, right? Accurate and timely filing of reports. That alone explains almost $200,000 of the balances we had just by refiling a previous end of the year report that was filed incorrectly that I refiled when I came on. So that earned us another $200,000 that is part of those fund balances. So continuing to do that, it will also help us going forward. But we now receive better return on investments. Where our money that is in these fund balances is getting a better return now. That's by administrative action that we took. And obviously the overall financial markets play a role in that, right? Interest rates are a lot higher, but that was administrative action that led to us actually being able to get those rates from the bank. Increased tuition revenue, that's good, right? More students are choosing our school, which it's only a single year right now, but we hope it's a trend, and we hope it's a referendum that we're doing things well. Responsible grant management and successful grant applications, right? By being good stewards of our grant funding, that takes pressure off of the general fund. If you took your ESSER money and bought a bunch of things that were short-sighted in nature, you may not be in the same position as our district is. We've been quite frugal and shrewd with how we've used our ESSER money. So that's helped our overall financial position. And we've had some recent success just in the spring alone, over $200,000 of competitive grants in just in the spring awarded to the district. 147,000 of that focused on the safety of the buildings, right? So a school safety grant, and that benefits obviously the school because it's safer, but it also took funding that previously the towns were going to be able to were going to provide that now that grant is able to provide. So that's helped the district. And this is I'll have to provide some additional context, but spending based on educational merit rather than availability of resources. You sometimes get to March and people start saying things like, "Oh, there's still money in the budget." Well, that doesn't mean we have to spend it. If there's things that merit the expense based on providing better education to our students, of course we'll buy that stuff. On the other hand, if those purchases aren't there, we won't spend the money, right? I mean, that's, I think, a reasonable way to handle our budget. So, but ultimately, where does that money go? It goes into fund balance, right? The excess and deficiency reserve, for example. So, good stewardship of our finances has led to, overall sound fiscal management of the district has led to our ability to both lower assessments and provide some direct refunds to the towns. So it's a positive story. And
Before you go on,
Yeah.
may I ask a question?
of course,
So on the pandemic-related vacancies, is that a one-year thing? Are those places roles that you're going to replace, or have you? Because you said it was roles that weren't filled. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So now in general we have here and there a vacancy, but certainly we're much closer to fully staffed than we have been. In the recent future. Obviously, everybody's heard about the difficulty of hiring people coming out of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's changed a little bit, and generally, at the high school level, there's still some vacancies, but in general, we're fully staffed. So, I don't anticipate that continuing. That was more of a one-time, which contributes to the balances for sure, but won't continue in the future. But certainly, our budget can handle the expenses. It's not as if there's surprise expenses.
I just wanted to clarify. And then the spending based on educational merit. Patricia talked about reevaluating curricula. Is that going to change because money recently has been going into operations, and probably money needs to continue going into operations. So are there grants? Are there specific curriculum grants? Are there?
Well, I want to
Go
save
ahead.
it for
No,
later.
no.
but
Oh, I'm so sorry.
You're gonna have to wait, Sarah.
Okay.
I don't want to do a spoiler.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
We've got exciting stuff towards the end, but we will definitely address that.
Okay. Thank
Because
you.
it's a very reasonable
Sorry to
question.
jump the gun.
No.
I'm working so hard. One of my goals is not to interrupt people when they're doing presentations. So what Jordan described here, for instance, Sarah, about the spending based on educational merit rather than the availability of resources, March, there's money, or could we spend? This is requiring some cultural change.
Mm.
And cultural change can sometimes be hard. We know professionally that this is the right way to go. We have to be frugal, conservative, right, and good fiscal stewards of money, and saying no to requests when people in the past were used to hearing a yes sometimes can be hard. So we're trying to be transparent with everybody about our goals, our processes, and we know that in the long run, it will make the district more fiscally sustainable. So I just want to, some of this is it's both numbers and technical, and some of it's cultural.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's a lot here, so please feel free to ask questions if I'm not filling out all the blanks. I will try to move relatively quickly through the slides. So looking at the FY24 operating revenue budget, so in terms of returning funds to towns, it'll happen through two ways, and one of those is lower assessments. And what's made, there's a multitude of revenue categories that increase from when we originally budgeted to ultimately this fall, into October when we made the decision to lower assessments. So, transportation reimbursement was up quite a bit. Tuition was more than we had originally budgeted, so that's very good. Earnings from investments, as we talked about, receiving a higher interest rate, because we approached the bank to be able to get a higher rate. So that led to more earnings from investments. And that higher revenue allows us to lower town assessments by $215,214 and to make the decision to pay off the state note. So that's kind of the change that was approved at that October 26th meeting. So very good news in my opinion, right? Lower assessments, no more state note, which will benefit future budgets because we won't have the principal and interest expense in future budgets for the state note.
Can you just take a minute? I know last year that, I'm just channeling Jane Dutcher right now from Bernardston.
It's a good person to say.
I know. Wasn't that, and I know Cammie, the overseer, wasn't that something that we couldn't do last year? How did it change to this year that we could pay it off?
That is also addressed in the future slides. So I will get to it. I know we're getting
this
lucky
is good.
here.
They're not going
No.
ahead.
We're anticipating.
I know.
Okay.
You're
All
very,
right.
very intelligent people. Great minds think alike and all that.
Uh-oh. Fools never differ.
And is any of this based on the change in the loss of one of the communities? Did that, how did that add and subtract from the bottom line?
Oh, you mean Warwick?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean there were additions, and I think overall the specific impact of work. So we now get tuition for 15 students from Warwick. So approximately in the range of $300,000 of tuition from Warwick. And not having the Warwick students made it so there was less staffing needed at the elementary building at NES. So in terms of the overall impact of Warwick, I think to put it as succinctly as possible is we've handled the transition as well as we could hope to. Not a huge impact ultimately because we managed it well, planned well, and feel that the relationship's going well. So
Good.
That's how I would say Warwick's going.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that's part of the on the revenue front, right? Lower town assessments, no more state note. Another good thing that we were able to agree to at the October 26th meeting is to lower the capital assessments because that grant I talked about where we were given $147,000, we were able to use that grant money to address some capital projects at PBRS and pay for those with grant money so we won't need money from the towns because the towns pay for capital stuff at the middle high school. So that is saving the towns $25,000. In addition, Bernardston-Northfield also benefit because they had key card access projects budgeted for, but ultimately this grant will pay for those as well. So that's another
Nice.
$39,000 at Bernardston and $25,000. Is that correct, Andrea?
Yeah, I don't have the numbers, but
Yes.
it sounds right.
Yep. So that grant has been a really positive because it helps the middle high school, but also helps on the town budget side. So more good news there that we won't need to ask for as much money. So lower assessments, $215,214 on the operating, $25,000 on the capital. So that's $240,000 of the story. But but we talked about $740,214. So there's more money to come. Right. So total of $240,214 saved, which on slide 8 allows it the increased revenues allows us to pay off the state note, reduce town assessments. All good news. And then to B's question about the state note, great question. Why are we able to do it now and work in the past? And part of it owes to increased confidence from our fiscal overseer that the district is righting the ship. We're charting a better course than we were previously, and we're doing the things necessary to resolve financial issues we had in the past. So she's confident and recommended to DESI that we pay off that note and put us in a better position in future operating budgets. And similar to the fiscal overseer, increased confidence for DESI. Before making these decisions, we had several conversations at length with DESI, including the Associate Commissioner of Finance and his staff and colleagues, to discuss this plan. So they're behind it and understand what we're doing and understand the progress we're making. I think overall we've been able to clearly demonstrate, after the couple years process of cleanup, show everybody where we're at, that we have the financial wherewithal, that we can pay this off, and not need the revenue from having the state note. We can pay this off this year and have the financial wherewithal to do so.
So, a couple questions on that. Like, these are all really promising. Because I think when I was there, it was like the beginning of the crash. It was that administration before the one that was before Patricia, and I saw the downslide. None of this is so transparent and promising, and this is the first time, I think, at least I'm speaking from a person who's really kept a close eye on everything going on with the schools. The first time anything like this has been put in front of us, and to have the outlook that looks so good, it's builds a lot of confidence. It really does. What do you think were some of the main contributing factors, Jordan, coming in and looking at this now? And like I said, you're 2 administrations removed from the ones who I feel like created this problem. In looking back on everything, are there any contributing factors that seem to be like the glaring ones? Was it sort of misappropriation of funds? Was it bad administration? Is there a key? Was it a big drop off in students that was just not measured?
Yeah, I think that
The reporting? You mentioned something about that earlier. Does that tie in?
So, right, I think that there's a couple things. I think that one big thing that I haven't touched on because it's not financial, but I did mention at the school committee meeting. Patricia's a great leader, and I know she doesn't like this part of the presentation, but I say that, and as I mentioned in the school committee, I'm not one to give false praise. And so I think that really helps, right? Because the relationship of the director of finance and the superintendent, that has to be a strong relationship. The people have to work well, they have to be honest. But it's not just me and Patricia. Patricia helped attract really great people, adding to our administrative team, but brings out the best in people, sets high standards, and ensures that lots of people are talented, right? Like, ultimately, out of your administrators, you want them to bring the best out of everybody, right? And I think that we have someone who's doing that. So I think it starts at the top, just to be honest. We have a good superintendent. That's great. I'm not saying the other ones were bad, but maybe, I don't know, maybe they weren't as superlative. So that's something we have. That's wonderful. I think the other thing is we've tried different models in terms of financial management. And this isn't to say that I'm uniquely good, but some of the things we've done is, we did some, maybe the superintendent was both the superintendent and director of finance. That's probably hard to pull off. I haven't seen it always work. It's a lot of work, both of those jobs. So when you combine them, I think that could have been tough. I'm sure the person who was working as hard as they could in that role, but that might be an impossible ask. And I think we did permanent, then we did like a hybrid on-site some of the time, then went to an outside company. I think that ultimately having a person full-time in the role devoted to director of finance helps, whether it's me or whether it's some other person, but having that established position where the person is focused on this all the time, I think that has definitely helped. And I also think that people think in some ways like having a fiscal overseer is a black eye, but I think it's a positive. You know, Cammie's hugely experienced, provides so much knowledge to us and provides us a direct extension to DESI, right? If we want to talk about with the Associate Commissioner of Finance for DESI, we can have those conversations. You know, we can get the knowledge and counsel of people who are looking at hundreds of districts. So I think that there's been so many contributing factors, but those are some of the ones I would think about, yeah. And so the B's thing about reporting, yeah, for sure. Some of the things that happened when we didn't have permanent director of finance weren't great. Yeah, I mean, you know, filing stuff incorrectly that cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars. But ultimately we fixed that problem. We got the money, no harm, no foul, but we can imagine what that might look like if an outside organization was running your finance for many years. So I think that those are some of the factors that have helped right the ship.
Well, I think that ties in strongly with your point about focusing on finance and reporting, right? Full-time as opposed to part-time. Yeah.
Yep. So there's been so many contributors, so we're lucky that we've had it, that we have a good team in place now, and I do think it'll continue. And so the fund balances, you know.
Can I say one thing?
Of course.
Just quickly, two things. Well, thank you for the kind word. We have a full administrative team now of experienced professionals. And in the past, I've heard some concern, there are too many administrators. I don't think our administrative team is too big. We are at the right place right now. And because I, as the supervising administrator, have fantastic people in place, I can hand work to them. I can say to our director of teaching and learning, who is an experienced, successful grant writer, Kate, take a look at that, please. And if Kate says, I think we should go for that, I can say to Kate, can you develop a grant? And Kate goes and develops a grant. Jordan, I can say, Jordan, please can you do this, to our director of student services. So we have professionals in place who can take care of business, which allows me to step back from doing some of the work that, for the past years I've done work in a range of those roles. I now can think about, how do these pieces fit together? How do we work with other governmental agencies? How do we look for outside funding? How do we develop programming? We haven't been in that place, and I'm so excited. Second, and then I want to hand back to Jordan, I want to thank Michelle and Bernie in the audience, because the day after this important October 26th school committee meeting, we had prearranged a meeting for town officials to come and hear from Jordan more about these important approvals. And Cammie Lamica, our fiscal overseer, made herself available. She participated. She had some thoughts to share, and Bernie in particular had the chance to ask Cammie very, very directly, his estimation as right on that slide. So that was
as Bernie is wont to do, yes.
And I appreciated it. Okay, wait a minute. I want you to say how are they doing? What?
Right.
And Bernie, I think it was fair to say she thought we're going in the right direction.
Yes, because I asked, because she was available, I asked directly the condition of the district, the problems that she saw in the past. Is the district on its way to improvement? Does she have confidence in the district administration? And also, the issue of the bond. And then also asked about the issue of how long that the overseer would stay in place. She gave very satisfactory answers. The only thing is, she said the administration, they would still like, even if we pay off the bond, that they still may look to 1 to 3 years of oversight in the future. But she said she had full confidence in the administration of the district.
Yeah, and that's an important point, right? None of this is done, right? You're never done in terms of improvement. You can always be better, and we're cognizant of that. We don't think we're done. We don't think we're rich. We don't think that we don't have to be responsible or have the same level of focus and stewardship of school resources. it's always a process of improvement. It's how do we get better? And so we know this isn't a party. This is, as Heath pointed out, just a transparent accounting of where we are, and let's keep getting better. So regarding a transparent accounting, so the fund balances. So we have to, as part of the transition agreement, we are returning 8.6% of certain fund balances to the town of Warwick, now its own district. That's part of the agreement. And so obviously every year you're filing your access and deficiency and looking at these things, but obviously with an even closer focus this year given the terms of the transition agreement. And so we wanted to also at the same time refund some money to our remaining member towns. And so after Warwick's share, there's $3.2 million approximately. So we said let's and discuss with Desi a plan to return $500,000 to the towns and make some investments over $600,000. And there's still a balance of over $2 million. And Desi, in consultation with them, we talked about that being appropriate for continued sustainable operation of the district. I mean, obviously we want to have some fund balance so that any unanticipated expenses and changes in operational conditions we're able to withstand without, for example, having to go to the towns and ask for big assessment increases. So we want to, of course, maintain some level of cushion so that we can operate sustainably. So what the fund balances allow us to do, return $500,000 to the town and make some investments, which we're going to talk about. And I think it's Sarah's point about curriculum of $615,000. But just quickly here on slide 12 about the overall financial benefit to town. So these decisions that we discussed at the October 26th meeting lead to $379,779 of financial benefit to the town of Northfield. And we celebrate that not just as a way to give ourselves a high five and say, isn't that great, but it's also recognition of the fact that we understand towns have tons of expenses. It's not getting easier in small rural districts or in small rural towns. So we're just so excited to be able to provide those type of resources to realistically our most important partners, right? The member towns in putting together a great education for our students. Healthy towns mean a healthy school, right? Mm-hmm. So any ability for us to reduce the cost of education while still providing a great education, we feel makes us extremely happy. Because we know you all are great financial stewards as well, and will make great investments with any of those returns. So, and as Bernie has explained to us many times, there are plenty of things to spend the money on. So, and that's not in any way to be humorous. It's real serious, and I know I tend to try to be humorous, but there's super important stuff that needs to be invested in. So. It's wonderful that we're able to do this at this juncture. And so some of the investments, $615,000 sounds like a lot of money, but one of the things we're thinking about, right, curriculum renewal, your school, what better thing to invest in than, books, learning. And now as Patricia pointed out, now we have a director of teaching and learning who's extremely experienced, knows what she's doing, and we know this, whatever amount of the $615,000 we allocate towards curriculum renewal, we know it's going to be spent in a meaningful, smart way. And when you don't have that position, it's harder to know to what effect that money would go to. So we're really excited to be able to provide Kate with those resources. And importantly, this would come from fund balances, right? This wouldn't come from assessing the towns, which is an important point, because if someone says curriculum renewal and assessments are going up, it's much more of maybe a tepid response or a mixed response, right? But this is, we use our fund balances, we'll be able to do these things, improve teaching and learning for our students, and we won't have to assess anybody to do it. Same thing with facilities. If there's some low-hanging fruit and there will be, that comes both out of the facilities master planning process and just our internal knowledge of maintenance, if we can do that with our fund balances, again, that's something we don't have to assess for. And if it's safety related, let's get it done sooner rather than later, rather than waiting for the whole budget cycle to play out. And we're not going to talk a ton about it because this needs to be handled through negotiations. But of course, anytime you're talking about foundational investments in your district, you're talking about staff compensation, right? Like we all believe that. Again, we can't talk a ton about it, but as long as it's fiscally responsible, we're going to be huge advocates for staff compensation as well.
And when you say staff, you mean faculty? I mean teachers?
Certainly, any investment that goes into staff, the vast majority of staff means people directly providing education, which is probably 85% of the funds go in that direction when you start talking about staff. But of course, we also want to make sure that central office staff are compensated on par with their colleagues at other schools so that we can retain good people there. But any investment in staff, the vast majority will be people dealing with students.
And that includes custodians, food services workers,
Yep.
Okay,
instructional assistants, admin. So we have 2 bargaining units. One is faculty,
Yep,
and then one is the support staff.
right,
And that's 4 groups of
right.
roles.
I just wanted, because I didn't see the breakdown, I just want,
We're-
maybe that's on a,
So we've been advised by our attorneys,
yeah,
not to give any specifics about that,
okay,
except to say any changes to staff compensation for the vast majority of our employees who are
Yeah.
members of 2 bargaining units has to happen at the table.
sure, I understand that. I think the question was actually just a simple word thing, like staff to me normally means administrative,
Yeah.
right? I think that's generally how it's used. So
Sure.
what you're talking about is all employees
Yes.
that are eligible when you use the word
Sure.
staff
Yeah.
compensation here. Okay.
So what was decided at the school committee meeting, we're going to pay off the state note, return funds to towns, and make key investments.
Yep.
And the magnitude of this, having done the presentation several times, can get lost, but I think it's just a really positive thing, right? $740,214, to our most important partners in this whole process. So we're happy about that, and to be able to make key investments in these areas that are so foundational to the school, right? The learning materials, buildings themselves, and the people that work most directly with our children. I think that most people would say good investments. So we're happy that we're able to do that, and happy that in terms of the investments, it's not going to happen through having to ask for more money from you all. Budget process. I think that
What would you like?
Before we move on to that, I just had one quick question.
Yeah.
So with the return of the money to the towns, I know every school district does things differently, but I've seen other school districts spend that money on different things that were kind of like on a wish list, or put it in some sort of a revolving fund or something like that. How come those approaches weren't taken? Now, not that the towns don't appreciate this. I'm just curious as to what makes certain institutions act in one way and others in another.
When Jordan was speaking earlier about the evolution of our administrative team, I would say, and this could be people use it as jargon, but I want us to lead with our values, right? It's always about students. The student experience has to be at the center. When adults are treated well in a school district, the hypothesis is it is more likely that students will be treated well in a district. We have to treat each other with dignity, and we have to engage honestly, relentlessly. So I think we did do maybe some of what you're alluding to. It's taken a few years, and Kimmy's great in the way she frames it. It did take the departure of Warwick. We had to see how that settled out. Yep, we could have used this money as a piggy bank. And that long term doesn't serve the interests of the district, because our towns have to believe us. I hope it never happens, but gosh, something unforeseeable, and we're in a jam, and we have to come to the towns hat in hand, say this was an emergency, there's no way it could have been foreseen, we need X dollars. I hope that never happens. If it does, I want you to look at us and think, okay, this must be bad. They're really good with the money. They always tell us the truth. When they had extra money, they brought it to us because it belongs to the towns. This is taxpayer money. And so we worked for, I'd say, 5 solid months on this project. So many meetings with the department. So many meetings with the budget subcommittee. Thank you for Michelle for being an excellent chair of that committee. And collaboratively, we determined that this tripartite solution seemed appropriate. We need to give some money to staff. we need to be, so investing in some goods and services staff, there's money that needs to go back to the towns, right? Like that just has to happen. So I hope that answers your question.
I mean, maybe one thing,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna make
Yeah.
a comment, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm gonna, in the middle of budget myself, so I'm gonna do the cold, hard analysis. If you look at their fund balances, 3.2 million is way too high to be sitting on,
Mm-hmm.
without them saying, what are you doing with $3 million if your total budget assessment is X, if your total budget is X, you're sitting on, I apologize,
No, it was
10%,
it was too
20%,
big, and
30% of your budget, when we know that we do 3 to 5% as our capital stabilization account. If they were sitting on 30%, I'm not saying you are, somebody would actually go, what are you doing? Sitting on, it's overfunded. And like I said, much of that he's prepared to say, I found the money because we figured out we're filing incorrect. You did a whole explanation of how you found the money for multiple things. And then when that all added up, that balance is really just too high to justify. I mean, I think it's that simple, and to some extent.
And what we did with that balance was based on our values, because we could have made some very large purchases this year. We could have gone to the school committee and said, we'd actually like to spend $500,000 on this alarm system or this, that, or, we want to prepay for $300,000 worth of curriculum, and we didn't go that route.
Right.
Instead, we came to the towns and said, we want to give you a bunch of money back because it is your money, and now that the picture is clear, it feels ethically most appropriate to do that.
And we're still going to do some really exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Despite all that.
So just one other question. So to that point, is there like a policy percentage that you're now aiming for that the fund balance wouldn't go over? I mean, that's what we had to do for our financial policies, was establish what the ideal percentage was.
Well, I think for access and efficiency, there's a statutory one, right?
Okay.
5%. That overall fund balance, I kind of simplified it, right? It's many different revolving funds. So theoretically, no. I mean, there's only one that has a statutory, and then some of these revolving funds can.
Okay.
They can be.
Yeah, whatever is
Gotcha.
reasonable for the funding the operations of the school. But I mean, Andrea makes a good point as well, right? Like we don't want to have a huge balance that isn't doing good for our towns or our students, right? Just sitting there, it's better to put it to work.
And you only need one person to look at this and go, and then it's out. And then you look like you have egg on your face. Even though you weren't doing anything wrong, but people go, why are you sitting on all this taxpayer money?
Yeah.
So Andrea, what happens to that taxpayer money once the $379,779
Well, I asked that
comes back to
question.
Northfield?
They're not going to bill us. So the truth of the matter is,
It's like a credit.
We have no say. The department,
They're gonna
the
make it
guidance
pay it
from
and
the
refund
state,
it?
this guidance from the state was that we not talk with you about this
Yeah.
because the recommendation is that the towns, in plural, seek Department of Revenue guidance for the exact mechanism. Well, the assessment we know, the assessments are
Disbursement?
reduced.
well, that seems
But
a
we
little
write
strange
what-
because there's 3 different towns. So
I'm,
we all-
I'm just repeating what the
You have to
Associate,
all
Associate
seek it
Associate Commissioner for
independently.
Finance told us, which is he suggested that the towns speak with the Department of Revenue about this. We have no say in what the towns do with the money.
Right.
So you'll get a check, and your assessments, your quarterly assessments, the remaining ones, will be reduced. So there's 2 mechanisms.
Well,
by
that's
which-
what I was saying, I think, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're gonna get a check, a big check.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's for stuff you've already
Just like
paid.
winning
you're
a golf
saying.
tournament.
No. You're getting a large amount of money in a check, and you're getting a
Reduced
reduction in your assessments. There are
So-
2 ways.
Both.
You're both, and that will add up to this town. That's going to add up to just shy of $380,000.
Yeah.
Great.
And these numbers are not yet.
Right. So the assessments are solidified. Those are the real reductions. But for the refunds, we need to actually certify our excess and deficiency. So those are draft numbers in terms of the refunds. But I think that they're going to be very close.
Right, and I think that's the question we'll ask our voters. If we have a reduction in the assessment, that essentially frees up allocated money. So theoretically, and this is not, I'm not asking you to answer this, theoretically, could the town go to town meeting and say our reduction is 180 and you're sending us back 100? I don't know, we're making it up. Could the town go to town meeting and redirect $180,000? It's money that was allocated that's no longer needed in that line item. that's a question we'll ask legal and Desi.
Okay.
The slide 10 on draft will show you what exactly
Yeah.
you're getting.
Right, I was just making up the numbers. I'm just
Yeah.
saying whatever it is that comes
Like
back.
12, yeah.
Essentially, we've
Yeah.
over appropriated.
Yeah.
And can we take that money, because it's already been appropriated and raised on the tax rate, and redirect it?
And I do want to make the point to people listening that this isn't something that the school had. There's a fiscal overseer that has been the one that has really had oversight of this. So it's not them necessarily just acting on their own. You have
No.
strong advice.
And this has to be approved by the commission. We have had their approval every step of the way.
Okay.
Thank you for making sure that that was, that our townspeople understood that. And B, just a quick thing, I want to make sure your E&D, excess and deficiency, I believe in municipal finance, is free cash.
Yes, it's the equivalent of free cash.
It's a different term for regional school districts.
Thank you.
I just had to steal one calendar back and
No,
then I
that's
given
fine.
out too many.
That's fine.
And so getting into the budget process, that's really where we're headed to next, right? Obviously this year we started very early because to make this possible and to know that what we were doing was sustainable in terms of budgeting, we had to have kind of a framework of what the FY25 budget was going to look like, and really the FY26 and FY27 budgets to at least a rough draft to know that refunding this money isn't is a smart decision this year, but also in the near term, in the 3 to 5 year range. So the budget process, although formally started in October, really we had to start it in September to know that these decisions that we came to in October were sensible and sustainable. So obviously November 21st, we're here with you all, and we're going to meet with Bernardston. We've already met with Lyven in early November. We're going to meet with Bernardston next week after the holiday, and then subcommittee meetings continue, and then in January the 2 budget hearings, followed by the public hearing on February 8th, and then school committee vote on February 15th. So we've outlined the process early on, and we're going to adhere to this process, and we anticipate it being smooth because we haven't looked at just a single year. We're looking at a couple of years at a time, and are confident that we've charted a good trajectory going forward here.
Can citizens attend any of these meetings?
All of them.
They're all open meetings. Occasionally, there's an executive session. And you know what? I'm sorry, I meant to do that yesterday or today. I need to send the towns the municipal representative letter. I will do that. Because negotiations will open up with the support staff. So we need a municipal representative. So keep your eye, Sarah, on the agendas if they say executive session or not, because sometimes budget will go into that session.
I just wanted to make sure the citizens knew that they were
Yes.
free to attend.
Absolutely.
And so after the budget process, and this is really encapsulated in the budget process, but for this budget, although not yet approved by school committee, but we would like to make a recommendation that our target assessment increase for FY25 is 3%. So the reason we think that's important to be really forthright right now with is, it's not the case that although we return money and reduce assessments this year, that then some unsustainably high number is going to come the following year. We hope to not just this budget, but in the FY26 budget as well, and maintain something similar to a target of 3%. We are still cognizant of the fact that regardless of a 1-year return, we still need to be very financially conscientious given the expenses that all the towns have. Of course, we want to put a great educational product out there, but we know we need to do that within really pretty tight constraints because there are plenty of competing interests for the scarce resources of the towns.
Can you tell me the difference between these 2
I was
slides?
just looking at that.
Yes.
Did we make a mistake, or is this?
No. We could have made a mistake, but not here yet.
I get it,
So on those two slides, what I
Oh, I
Right.
see it now.
what I propose, I just wanted to look
Two
at it
different
two different ways, right? So on the reduced assessments of $8,558,898, 3% increase in FY25 would be total assessments of $8,815,665. But one other way to look at it,
I see.
That's the new assessment,
Right.
October assessment.
from what was actually adopted in February, an
Last
increase to $8,815,665 is actually a less than 1% increase. So
I see.
it puts it's another way to look at where we're trying to be reasonable. We understand the predicament of our towns and that and so we want to kind of demonstrate that we're trying to be as reasonable as possible.
Can I rephrase just to make sure that I understand? So there are two slides, one on the top and one on the bottom. The one on the bottom indicates a less than 1%. So this is what's already, this was what was adopted in February. And we have from the February adopted operations assessment, less than 1% increase. However, there was a new assessment adopted in October.
Yep.
And from that new assessment, which is significantly lower, we have the difference, the same final number, the same final proposed FY25, but the difference is now 3% because the
Yes.
new adopted assessment is
Yeah.
lower.
Yep.
Everything's correct.
Sorry, I just
No, very nicely said. Very
The
nice.
proposed impact for this 1 year, because we already voted the other budget, we already assessed it on the taxpayers, means that our budget will see a approximately 1% increase for the school this 1 year.
Yeah.
It won't
And-
see the 3 because you lower the number that you're basing the new 3 on.
Yeah. And every town's different, obviously, the minimum local contribution and all that, because
Has
in
to go through
reality,
the formula.
right, in FY24, Northfield's actual budget-to-budget difference with the new adopted assessments as of October 26 is actually a decrease of 3.45% from what was assessed in FY23. And I do understand that part of that story is the outgoing students to tech, but many districts have students going to tech and pretty significant increases from their district. So to have a 3.45% decrease this year, welcome news. It's not a cure-all, but welcome news, I'm sure.
And it's not a decrease for us in educational costs because the cost shifts to the tech school. So it's not, so yes, it's representative for your school going down, but the tech school goes up. So for us, we look at the whole education picture. It's not like, oh great, we saved this money. No,
Yeah.
we're spending it somewhere else.
Somewhere else.
Yeah.
Better than it was. And so facilities master plan update, obviously, that process started.
He was there. Yeah.
Right.
You were there at the
Exactly. We've had contributions from
No, I
these
wasn't.
two.
You weren't there. Okay.
Bernie and I,
Bernie was there. Yep.
Yeah.
we
Michelle's
tag
been
team.
there.
Yeah.
So that plan's process started in the beginning of August because I got back from China the day before it started, so I remember the date. And it's continuing getting towards kind of the recommendation stage. But this first slide here, slide 20, has some really big numbers. Overall, there's tens of millions of dollars of in the 10-year time period that need to be allocated towards our buildings, our facilities, right? And so we'll have some decisions to make, about do we keep the same configuration as we currently have in terms of buildings and make some of the investments that are displayed on this slide in our existing elementary buildings in our middle high school. Do we consider some different options of maybe having less buildings and investing this money differently? Because ultimately, from what we've seen from the facilities assessment, significant investments need to be made in our buildings over the next 10 years to keep them operational, safe, and educationally appropriate for our students. And so that kind of transitions into slide 21, where we have some options, right? Are we going to maintain a middle high school, 2 elementaries? In our last meeting, and participants can chime in as well, but it seemed like there was some support for the idea of going to a single campus where you had 1 elementary building and 1 middle high school building. Obviously, the question there is always going to be, well, how much does that cost? And that is something that we understand. Prior to any final decision being made, we need to get a much better picture of, right? How much is that going to cost? How will that impact assessments? And of course, equally important, how does that impact the learning experience of our students? So what the facilities master plan is doing is getting tons of community input, tons of feedback from people, looking really closely at our facilities, what condition they're in, and providing us some options. Ultimately, it's not telling us what we must do or anything along those lines, but it's providing tons of useful information for us to make a data-driven, informed decision of how we want to go in terms of the infrastructure of the district.
So it's not whether money's going to be spent, because money has to be spent, right? Either on renovations or on.
Sarah, you have hit the nail on the head. No matter what, we love our schools. Yes, within the next 10 years, some money's going to have to be spent. And our collective conversation is, what are our options? And how do we as a community, what will we invest in? I do want to point out that this is this colorful slide down the bottom. That's a screenshot from a draft. The numbers we actually anticipate will be higher, possibly significantly higher. Canon Design is coming to the school committee on December 14th. We'll advertise that. Paul Mills, the lead manager on this project, will be in person with school committee, and we will be issuing an invitation to town officials to meet with Paul the following day so that he can answer your questions. We're going to issue an invitation to all staff in the district to meet with Paul in person after school the next day. These are draft numbers. Keith, I think you'll appreciate this. For each of our 3 buildings, there's a 70 to 100 page report that in excruciating detail lists every single item that they found needs work, potential, the cost, the replacement cost, the repair cost, how critical it is, in what time frame, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then they aggregate the information in multiple ways. So Paul will be, all of that will be available online. And we're delighted that the towns will have this information, right? We, as Jordan said, and as we have said several times at this table, we've been shrewd with our ESSER money. When I came, there was a little bit of a piggy bank approach to it. We stopped that immediately. We had $120,000 available to put into this project. And while some of it started this summer, this is actually 2 years in the making. I came at the end of August 2021, and within a couple months I was saying to school committee, we need a review of facilities. I can't find any record of a large-scale, deep facilities review for many, many years. Mm-hmm. We need this information because we can't plan, the towns can't plan for capital projects unless we have it. So. Yeah. Been a long time coming. We're reaching the end. We'll be able to share the reports with everybody. Folks can scrutinize it. They can agree and disagree with cost estimates, but we'll have something to work from. Paul will be presenting Canon's final recommendation for an option. That is Thursday, December 14th. A week and a couple days before, the district planning committee, which is that group of 22 something people, Andre is a member, we are members, will have a 4-hour meeting with Canon that Tuesday evening. They're bringing us back the results of the second community survey. We once again had almost 250 people respond to that survey. They'll present information, they'll listen to our feedback, and then 9 days later they'll come with their final recommendation. School committee doesn't make any decision at that meeting. That is an opportunity for school committee to hear from Canon. The next day, we'll make Canon available to town representatives, to staff and faculty, and then school committee considers the facilities master plan report December, January, until they make a decision about what direction they might want to go in. Should the school committee decide to take a step forward, one might be completing what's called a statement of interest. I mean, this is your bailiwick. That commits the district to nothing. It commits the towns to nothing. It is an initial phase in a relationship with the Mass School Building Authority in which the district says, we've got this building or building, look at how many problems they have. That's it. It's not suggesting a solution, no commitment, but to get into eventually the queue for MSBA money, one has to submit an SOI and have it be accepted. And then there is an invitation issued into the very lengthy, years-long process. So there's no commitment, there's no anything right now from the school committee.
And even once you're in that process, they evaluate everybody who's in that process on a continual basis, and they'll whittle it down. So if you have 64, they'll cut that in half to 32, and they'll keep cutting things down. And you could just not keep making the cut every year when they do that review process. So it is how it is. So there's no guarantee once you're in that process you're even going to get a second look. You could just be in that initial look, and then that's it.
Yep.
And that's assuming a new facility of some sort.
No, the statement of interest has nothing to do with that.
Okay.
Statement of interest is simply saying
This is
what we've got wrong.
That's what I want to be clear on, so it doesn't.
Big money tickets that the school board authority would help pay for. It could be anything.
And that's
so
down the road.
if they came back with option 1, favored by Stan Garland, then the money associated with any of these options would be part of the statement of interest, correct?
No. I want to be even more clear. The statement of interest would not include these options. The statement of interest is not about what we would like to do. The statement of interest is saying to the MSBA, we have some really big repairs or possible renovations that are needed. Here's problems that we have. No solution suggested.
Right. I misspoke. All of the options cost money. It's just a question of how much. So the statement of interest is assuming that some amount of money is going to have to be spent, whether it's renovating or building. Is that fair?
Yes, it is saying to the state, we have problems, they're going to need money. Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then just one quick on slide 20, that's all the buildings in the district, total up to that, and then they have individual reports.
Yep.
Are those online yet?
No, because they've been in draft form. And again, Paul Mills has said he believes that these numbers are off by a factor of we don't know what.
Yeah.
And Paul has said multiple times, I think you should expect that these numbers will come in substantially higher in the final version.
Because these are the costs of the work being done, the work needed.
Yes. Yeah.
Potentially.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's the roll-up of 3 buildings.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because it sounds like what we're looking at with, it sounds like what we should have caught earlier for sewer and water. It sounds like we have the chance to try to get in the way before we have disastrous expenses that are emergencies. So it sounds like something good. I have a question. You said ESSER money. What is that?
Federal COVID relief.
Okay.
And Sarah, we sought and received federal and then state, through the state, permission to use ESSER money for this facilities review because only one of the 3 buildings is owned by the district. And the state confirmed that the Fed said it is okay to use federal ESSER money to review a facility that does not belong to you. Mm-hmm. We may not use federal money, ESSER money, to fix anything in the 2 town buildings, but this was acceptable.
Yeah.
So that came from you guys and didn't cost the town.
Yes.
Well, and you're going to provide that. I mean, meaning you.
Yes.
We didn't put it, and that came out of the COVID relief.
Yes.
And then, but we're going to have the town will have access to those reports.
You are our good partners. This is a good use of our money. We're happy.
Okay.
Yeah, and then just the theme last year was ESSER was going away. And I think Jordan made that, or you, Patricia, made that point, was that we didn't want to be using ESSER funds for things that were anticipated to be operating.
That's right.
So, because then the concern was then when we look at the budget this year, there'd be like a huge
Cliff.
increase in like
Yep.
early childhood or something
Sure.
like that.
Yeah.
You
So
won't
that
hear
was
any fiscal cliffs from us this year.
Right.
That's why 25 's
no
budget.
hockey sticks one way or the other. So yeah. Okay.
Great, and so, perfect transition. So one thing I should mention about the reports is they don't, the only thing the facilities assessment doesn't hit on is appliances in food service. I mentioned that because that's some of the stuff we're gonna talk about in terms of capital projects. They don't evaluate your appliances, like your ovens, and that's outside because it's not the building system.
Oh, you're on 24.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
an appliance. So the NES capital projects, front entrance door, so we're estimating somewhere $10,000 to $20,000.
Do we have quotes on that? We've been talking about that since last year, right? I thought it was going to be in like FY24 town meeting, but it didn't make it.
The front entrance door.
Yeah, you're talking about NES, right?
Yeah.
Everything's for NES, but so do we actually have quotes and we're ready to go on a?
I would. We have some people that have looked at it, including the contractor that's doing the work for the bathrooms, but I don't know of any formal quotes.
Okay.
It's probably not the if I'm thinking of a building contractor, it's not the most attractive project I could say, right? Like
Yeah.
It's hard to get a building
Installation of a
contractor anyway. But.
yeah, it's
Right.
an installation of a single door that is non-standard, right? Like
Right.
it's not, you can't just pop a door in there. Unfortunately, if you look at the half round on top of the door, it's not
Yeah.
something that like a normal lumberyard is going to have a direct replacement for, unless you build it down.
But
so.
is this the one we're trying to get on a warrant? We have
Yes.
to put on a warrant article
Yeah, we have
for
to
a
fund
special
it.
town meeting? Okay.
But do we have to, so you guys are, I'm sorry, so excuse me if this is, but if the school is refunding us money,
Yep.
can some of that money be used for this door so it's not an emergency, so we don't have to have a special town meeting?
Well, no, you're going to have to move the money. And the only way to move the money would be through a town meeting. My hope is that we can do that.
Unless the school could
Yeah.
pay for it, pay for it.
We could do that.
We can do that.
Yeah, so we could pay for the project and refund you less money. That is possible.
And then we would avoid the need for that to be, that's not a special town meeting emergency anymore.
Wait a minute though, because town meetings are where the townspeople indicate where money is to be spent.
So I think that's a later discussion because it isn't
All
the
right.
only article on the warrant. So
Okay.
we can that can
Yep.
be discussed.
Okay.
Okay.
It just.
But I mean and we are going to discuss that, the special town meeting
It's on
proposal.
the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And so the grease trap, that is something that, although it's in draft form, that is something that's identified on the facilities assessment. There was a grease trap that was replaced, but there's actually 2 grease traps in the kitchen area, and they're both essentially beyond their useful life. So that's something that is a potential capital project. I don't have any prices for that yet.
Well, just programmatically. So when would we need? Just thinking ahead for like FY25, when would we need all of the info in order to do warrant articles
Well,
for FY25?
I didn't send anything to the school yet because they usually don't have it yet. But our town departments have already submitted all their capital requests. They were due this past week. But I know that they're still in books. So you probably, we usually notify you around assessment time that we're also looking for your capital articles.
For FY25.
Yeah, and those have gone out, so you're probably going to hear from me next week looking for.
Okay.
Well, we know that you can't give me your budget numbers. That's got a process, but
Right.
usually we say like, what are you looking at for capital? And this is essentially what they've got right here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, the grease trap, and I guess that's one that we can give an estimate on. And then the freezer cooler, that one we actually have prices on. And so that's $32,000, and we have vendors interested, so that would be an easy one to get going. But freezer, walk-in freezer or walk-in cooler freezer is in tough shape. Sometimes it's frozen shut. It takes a lot of beating on it to get it open, breaking ice off. I think we had to heat it once to melt the ice on the door is frozen shut because the insulation is degraded to such an extent. So that's a big one. A dishwasher would be is another one where we've had to resort on certain days using compostable plates and silverware. And then the carpet is another one that actually is identified on the facilities assessment of need, just the annual potentially.
We usually call it
investment
carpet floor because I think they've replaced every carpet in the place.
Yeah.
I think it was a year ago,
We've
they
been
told us
doing-
they were done with carpet.
Mhm.
They've done everything, but there's flooring. So I changed it to flooring because there was some
Yeah,
tile that needed replacement and things like that. So we didn't want to say carpeting and limit it.
Oh,
yeah. I
Just
think-
because there was a lot less need for the carpet after they did the big spaces like the
Right.
library and all that, but there's still some flooring issues.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right, vinyl. So those are some of the things that we've identified in the freezers. Very far along, and in terms of the bid process, and having prices. But any questions? I certainly would love to hear more from and since we have this opportunity to discuss anything that wasn't touched on in the presentation.
I have one more question, because we've got a lot of numbers in front of us.
Sure.
I've got this,
Of course.
oh,
and I've got this.
Yeah.
And just in this moment, I'm trying to make sense of it. Can you give me just 3 minutes worth?
Sure. I'm going to take one back because I think that
There are the pages here that
yeah, I just want to make
This
sure.
one?
I have the one
Yeah.
FY24 town assessments, which has blue,
yeah.
Yep.
and then
yep.
capital
What I-
assessments.
What I wanted to do is provide everybody the same information that we provided when we voted these in February and March. The same in-depth detail that we had in the original process, just to show people where we're at. So, in terms of the operating assessments, and this is by statute, this is how it's going to be for every year in terms of the the breakdown in the categories. But I think one place that I would start at is just the total operating assessment. I think that trend from FY22 to 23 to 24 for the town of Northfield, speaks to the point I made about the actual operating assessment being reduced by 3.45% this year as compared to FY23. So FY23's total operating assessment for Northfield is $4,765,610, and now, as of after the October 26th meeting, is now $4,601,334. The point stands that Andrea made about tech expenses going up, but for some towns, although tech expenses go up, nothing goes down on the operating expense at the regional school because having 4 tech students doesn't save any money. So at least in this circumstance, there are more tech students, but the operating assessment from the regional school went down substantially. So that's really I think in terms of a 30-minute conversation,
Right.
that's something we can highlight. In the capital assessments, I just wanted to provide updated assessments because previously the capital assessment, when added for the individual 3 towns, was $55,000, and now those 3 numbers are only $30,000. So that just highlights the savings of $25,000 to the 3 towns. So I wanted to provide those updated assessments.
Great. Thank you for the extra moment on that. I appreciate it.
Well, just one follow-up. So
Sure.
I think this was a question, I don't know if it was a Jane question or somebody else from Bernardston, the capital for the high school versus the elementary school. So the capital for the high school is built into the budget versus us doing a,
Yes.
Yep.
Because the capital for the high school is an assessment.
Yep.
So it's it's
Sure.
part of the assessment model
Okay.
and goes through the percentage thing.
Yep.
Because the school is the town's building, those requests are one-time articles because they're not operating.
Okay.
You know what, that made me think, this is related, I promise. The district agreement, I'm thinking about assessment apportionment. That subcommittee is meeting, both Michelle and Sylvia are on that subcommittee, doing fantastic work. And the goal is for the school committee to share with the towns a draft revised agreement in January. Right, to send out a draft revised district agreement to the 3 towns in January so that the towns may take it to their attorneys. We're setting up a meeting again with all the town FinComs and select boards come and talk to us. We will have a draft, a red line draft that shows you the original, shows all the prospective changes and a little annotation for most of the changes. So just thinking about, because the way in which we assess the towns is written into the district agreement. We use a statutory method, but it is making me, this is a very important moment to say, you will be getting a draft revised district agreement in January.
With capital in it and
Definitions of capital
and
and
with
operating.
withdrawal from the district.
All that.
Are you changing, because I was a little concerned about the time frame. Are you changing the way in which school committee members are elected? Are you changing it to like the town elections versus the state elections in November?
No, it is still the biennial election. The state provides significant guidance. We have a call scheduled with them on the 29th or the 30th. They produce a little booklet that describes the sections of a district agreement, and they point out which ones have statutory requirements.
Yep.
So this, I mean, I know, the subcommittee has just been plowing through the document.
In order to do that, they would have to change the representation because
Well, wouldn't that be a perfect
That would
time
be-
to do that?
it would be, it's a very different regional agreement. I was going to ask them if they've even considered that.
Consider, say it
Because
again.
if you're going to go to representation by direct vote from each town as opposed to regional representation, you have to change the way in which the towns have it. Like, for example, if
The percent.
Are you saying proportional?
Northfield's
Are you saying-
55%, they have to have 55% of the vote on the school committee.
Oh.
If Leiden's 20%, they have to have 20% of the vote. It changes the way in which the school
Constitution.
committees, in order to get around that, I'm assuming, I was not here in
Yeah.
1970, they didn't want to do that, so they did this above, there's only 2 ways you can go. One is to do direct proportional representation, and the other one is to say, we do it regionally. We don't do direct proportional representation, so everybody votes at large.
Yeah.
Everybody runs at large, and that puts it on the state ballot versus the town ballot. So that's how you ended
Yep.
up with that. In order to change that, you'd have to change the entire way that they are represented on the school committee in order to change the way they're voted onto the school committee.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's explored that. It would be an interesting exploration, only because I think there's a lot of concern about how people are voted onto the school committee and how the towns are represented.
That would be a perfect, so this subcommittee has
Yeah.
not explored a dramatic change in that area. This would be something that you would talk about as an elected body and might bring to your attorney. And then during the period for feedback, if you had a different proposal, you would present that.
Yeah. I just, in my experience last year, what I noticed is when people are elected in November, the new school committee members, there was really a lag
Oh, that.
because you, all of a sudden, all of your new people come in, and in November, one, they have to run across all of the towns, and two, they come in November, actually by the time they're in, it's maybe December, and it's right at the beginning of all of this. They've subsequently missed all of the intro to the budget, and they start in December, and they're playing like at least a couple of months of catch up.
There was conversation.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a little bit of conversation, I don't know if that was on the Cape at the conference, about having new people take their seat in January. So the election, so then that was a conversation down at the conference.
That's different.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there will be
Okay.
plenty of opportunity for
Okay,
feedback
I'm
and
just going to
suggestions.
throw that out now.
Great.
That's what I'm thinking about. So, yeah.
The only thing I was going to mention about capital assessments is although there's two different methods for operating capital, there's only one school district assessment to towns. That was something that was made clear from Desi last year. So it isn't the case that, like, for example, you can say, yeah, we want to improve the operating budget, but we don't like the idea of building a school building. You know, that's maybe an extreme example, but I guess in our example, but you don't want to put down a brick patio, for example. You know, there's different methodology for determining what amount of the capital projects get assessed to the individual town, but there's one assessment. So if you vote down the brick project, you're voting down the whole budget.
The whole.
It all
lump
comes
sum.
to
It's
you.
a one, it's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
one,
yeah.
it's an up or down on the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah.
That we did get guidance and clarification there.
Yeah. It's a whole learning experience, to be sure.
I'd like to thank the select board again for hanging in with us. Taken a few years, and we are feeling good about our development as an organization. I hope you are feeling similarly good about the organization. And we appreciate the time to come and speak with you. Thank you.
So, on that subject, I want to say that, you know, at least from my perspective, things do appear to be changing in a much positive way. One of the biggest expense that the taxpayers have to put forward is to schools and the schools budget, and that comes much easier when there's a lot more transparency, when there's good news coming out of it, and we're not hearing the doom and gloom that we've heard over the last 5, 6, 7 years. So it's a big positive for us to sit here to represent the people who elected us and hear that this bigger concern in the area of the town and the operations and where their tax dollars go is on an upward trend. So it's greatly appreciated. The transparency is what's going to continue to build that. I know that when union negotiations and salary negotiations happen, they are often sticking points, and that can often fray a community's perception of a school district, because those are people's friends and neighbors. Those are the voting people's next door neighbor who will complain about those kinds of things. And like the efforts we've had since I've been elected, and we continue to try to make strides for it, is becoming an employer of choice. And if there's any suggestion I can make, it's for Pioneer to try in whatever way possible to do that, do things that are unique so that you're attracting the greatest teachers. Happy teachers have happy classrooms with happy students and everything. So, you know, and I want to bring up we haven't seen you guys in months, but I do want to bring up the subject of the school resource officer thing briefly. We felt that we've had some conversations in the fallout of that whole entire thing, and I really wanted to speak to the chair of the school committee. So I'm sorry she's not here tonight, so hopefully she can catch the playback of this. But there was a lot of time spent by a lot of us up here on a process that, from what I personally felt, was not really wanted by the school district from the start. So because of that, it felt like a huge waste of time on our part. There's one thing I really can't stand, is wasting time on something that's not needed. The current facilities plan that you guys have going on has had community meetings, it's had newsletter updates, it's had surveys. That entire SRO process had none of those. So for something that is so important, and obviously the school is taking the facilities assessments very, very seriously, that whole SRO process had not one shred of those efforts. And that's something that's is really dismaying for me personally, and I've had other people talk about that. Why wasn't there in that process more of an effort to do those things, when obviously these were tools in the tool shed for them to gain the community's opinion on this? And people feel slighted in that sense, that they were not surveyed. How do we feel? It seemed like it was an agenda played out by certain people in the school that they didn't want to have a police officer there. And in that process, it really showed several different things. It showed the kids in the school that a police officer isn't welcome, which is the complete opposite of what that position should have been intended for, was to show that that person's a trusted person within the community. And it's that entire process, I felt, painted a complete opposite. Number two, it showed us as a board, when the school committee members voted of what could go wrong with that position, that the school district did not have the trust in us to manage that position. Because basically saying the person's going to be in there and it could be a big problem, that's saying we don't know how to manage our own staff. So that was kind of a big slap in the face. And then three, it really showed the community that their opinions didn't matter because they weren't surveyed. So I think in going forward, and in my own opinion, I think the school district should look at it in a different way again and do the process the correct way. If they're really trying to put all these efforts out there and do things the right way, I say they do that the right way, because it was done so wrong. There was open meeting law violations that were done in the process of the discussions of that SRO discussion. So that is, I guess, what I wanted to throw out there, that there are some great things being done. I don't want to end it on a negative note, but that is a big one that I've had a lot of people talk to me about, me being in that position and being a huge advocate for it whenever the subject of the schools come up and how are things going. And I see a lot of great stuff coming out of what's going on up there, better than I've seen it, other than when we were shopping for a place to live and we moved to this town in 2012. It was doing really good back then. This is the best I think it's done since we moved to this town, because it was already on kind of a decline at that time. So I want to see you guys do great. We're only going to be parents in the school district another couple of years, but doesn't mean our relationship with the town's going to, or with the school district, is going to end anytime soon. And it would be great to see Pioneer become just the champions of Franklin County, and it being a draw to bring residents to this town like it was for me and my family. And I'm really excited to see that upward trend going. And if there's anything that we can do on that side, then let us know. And I hope that you guys do take a look at that entire process again and get the community's input and other future things like that, because when it comes to voting time, those are the kind of things that weigh heavy on people. So.
And really great schools are, as he said, a part of economic development.
Yeah.
So
Huge.
Agreed.
yeah.
100%.
Great point. Yep. Thank you.
And public safety.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Wow. Looking forward to more discussion.
Don't think you have one of these, Sandra. So.
Oh, for Sandra or for Jordan?
Sandra doesn't
Jordan,
have
thanks
one.
for all the reports.
Oh, wow. My
Yeah.
pleasure.
Great job.
Good job. Oh, thank you.
Great job.
I appreciate all of your feedback. So thank you.
I have
Yeah.
learned a lot about financial operations within school districts and the such over the last 5 years, and it's really great to see a dedicated person in that role, because it's made a massive difference. When you have a really good person there, it shows. And I
Yeah.
think what you've done since you've been there, it's really starting to show, because we've seen nothing like nothing like this since we've
We
been on
actually
this.
have information and reports. So, and then if there is a question, you're like, but wait, I've got one more report on that too.
Right,
So
that's
yeah.
very kind of you all, and it really is, in all sincerity, a team effort, and Tricia's leadership. She's in terms of design and presentation, she's on top of it. So thank you all.
Thanks.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Jordan.
I
Okay.
just realized how washed out I look on that screen up here.
The light. It's the
Just
light
like
coming
glow.
up at us all. Yeah.
You
Don't
are
wear white.
glowing.
I think you don't want to wear white in the future.
I guess not, huh? Okay, we are at 8:07, and we are back to town administrator's update. We're going to go to the special town meeting.
Discussion.
Discussion.
So I had this discussion somewhat with the finance committee last night, although I actually
Okay.
have some better numbers on one of the articles. But no longer using the same Article 1 to purchase the property. The landowner has decided not to move forward with the sale. So that's enough said on that. Article 2 is the Northfield Elementary School doors that were just in discussion.
You mean former Article 1?
Well, no, Article 2 is the Northfield Elementary School door.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Article 1 is the overlay request by the Assessors
Right.
Tax Board to pay
Okay.
the bill that will be coming sometime probably in the end of this month, early January.
Ooh.
So she's going to have that bill, but the idea maybe now is to move this to the end of January, because there's nothing that we
So
need
nothing
to have
pressing?
by December 31st. But I
Yeah.
still want you to keep informed on what these are, and then you can start talking about a time frame, because if you do move forward with this, we'd have the opportunity to get have a lot more notice. I mean, we don't have to do anything until after, January 1st, even
Right,
if we're going
right.
to do the end of the month, because that
Yeah.
gives you 3 or 4 weeks. So, Article 2, the elementary school doors, exploring how that will be funded. We also have had free cash certified, and I'll announce all that in a minute. So that allows us to use free cash, that we don't usually have it done this early,
Ooh.
but it's an option. but I'm going to still explore being able to transfer some of the town last year's school appropriation towards this effort, because you're not going to be charged for all of the town appropriation. It makes sense to transfer school to school capital.
So is the net of that, to, I think Sarah's point, the town would need to vote to transfer the
Yes.
funds, but there is no increase on
No.
the taxpayers.
You take money
because
that's
we're moving from
you've already
one.
assessed
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Okay.
So you assessed enough to pay that bill, but the bill doesn't come, but you have this leftover pool of money, which will flow into free cash and have to be certified sometime next fall
Mm-hmm.
after June 30th. So you could try to use it now if they say that that's appropriate. We say, town operating was Article 5, blah, 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 take X amount of money out of the school budget and move that to pay for this expense.
Okay.
But you have to do it via town because you're changing the appropriation.
Yeah, got it.
Article 3, we've
Yeah.
been talking about this for a while, and there's a lot of reasons. We have currently plumbing, gas, electrical inspectors, but we've had some difficulty. We have one person. If that person goes on vacation or gets sick, as we just experienced, we have no inspector, which means that everything stops.
It's typical with a lot of Franklin County towns.
Small towns, it's very hard.
Yeah.
This is a hard job to fill. It's not just your average plumber or becomes an inspector. Usually it's retired. It's usually people with experience. There's a whole thing. So we've been talking about the FERCOG program for a while. I reached out and I asked, can we join mid-year? Can we join just right now for plumbing, gas, and electrical? That would be our first way in. We do have a building inspector who is probably going to retire in the next few years, and then we could shift everything, but currently we're just looking at this program. A lot of advantages to do this. One is we're not subject to
Availability.
one person's schedule. The other office,
Somebody picks up the phone when they're called. Yeah,
well, there's
stuff
an
like
office
that.
staff with a person who's there 5 days a week who assists residents. All of it's done online, although they do have a kiosk at Greenfield for people who want to do it in person. But otherwise, it's all done online. They access all the permit information, goes out to all the committees that need to approve it online. That all comes back. Everything goes through them. And so it's certainly something to consider. There is and I've written some of this in the note, there's about a $3,000 one-time fee to convert.
Yeah.
And currently the assessment is about $2,500 for each for a full year, and we would be prorated for the first year. So we're probably looking at closer to about $5,000 to join, and that's that one-time $3,000 fee. And then we do have an assessment each year, but we then don't handle anything.
Mm-hmm.
And there's we do get representation on the FCCIP advisory board. So
Oh.
we do have someone who would be part of the inspector program to go sit on the board to represent the town. And
From the
there's
select board, like the
you
other
can
committees?
appoint anyone.
You can appoint anyone.
It does not
Okay.
have to be a select board member. You just have to send someone.
Okay.
Um,
I'm
So, and then there's a
This
whole
is good.
explanation in here. You don't need to read it. You can
Yeah.
read it yourselves.
no.
But so I would advise, we've talked about it. Sandra handles this a lot. We've had all sorts of things. The people who are doing it are trying their best, but they are one person. Issues happen. This would be a much more professional way to move for us in terms of support for residents and ongoing projects.
Before we move off, can I?
Yeah.
So this is an issue that has specifically come up in the realm of economic development
Yeah.
because we've had business owners who had their building projects put off one by 6 months.
Yep.
And that made, 6 months in a business is huge when you're sitting with
For
your
a new
plumbing
business.
out. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really, that's really important. But I do have two kind of procedural questions or informational questions. Number one is, we're going to have an assessment. Do we currently pay an Like, how are we currently?
No,
What are we
we
currently
don't.
doing?
We basically take the fee and turn it around and send it to the person, to the inspector. We're a pass-through.
I see.
We do have a small amount of money that I put in the budget because if the town is to do anything, we have to pay that person. Whereas if we join the FERCOG, actually, we can ask, it can be waived.
So in this case, the money that people would be paying for an inspection would come to the town, and then
No
we
longer.
pay.
No,
and-
but they do now.
And so we're paying an assessment, and they're also getting paid separately.
No, right now, if you call a plumber and the inspector and it's $100, then you pay the town of Northfield the $100, then we pay the inspector the $100.
Right.
So we incur all that expense. We incur the expense of Sandra working on all these, issuing all this stuff, going through all this, handling all the money, turning the money over. We go through cutting the checks and sending that all out.
And the
All
next
goes
way looks
away.
different.
Nope, they file online, they pay FERCog, we don't issue it, nothing.
So we pay a membership.
Yeah,
Yes.
basically, yeah.
And they cover
Yeah.
their office for that service of having someone in the office, having the trained inspectors. We pay a set fee. Now, the thing to remember here is that there is a mechanism, and the person who would be on this board would learn this, that because they always have to do it based on next year's perspective. They have to guess how many permits you're going to issue next year. So they have to, because they have to guess. So if they build up, because they keep a bank, if they build up over time, there's a mechanism written in the agreement that if they hit a certain level, they have to then lower
Pay
the
back.
assessments or return that fund. So they're not allowed to bank and bank and bank and bank
Okay.
to control that cost. So they can't just, in case,
So the money, so Linda, the executive director, had just sent out an email about money coming back to the towns. Did that include this program?
well, we aren't in this
We're
program.
not in it, but did it, I think it included this program.
It might be for
Yeah.
people who are in it.
So it's similar to what we were talking about before, is that once they hit a certain level of
They can't
revenue,
hold
they have to
anymore.
kick it back to the towns.
Right.
Yep.
So-
And they did that this year, but
And
we
so
weren't
my
part
final
of it.
question on this is just because, I feel pretty strongly about special town meetings, and we've already had 3 this
Two.
calendar year. And,
We have
And-
two specials.
2 specials
2
and an
specials and a
annual.
regular, yeah.
Yeah. I'll cover it.
And so this would be the 3rd. That's where the 3 came from, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, on Article 2, we don't necessarily need this right now. We just talked to them. That could be handled. Article 3, can that not be done at the regular town
No,
meeting?
Article 2 has to happen. They're already getting quotes on it. They want that door fixed now.
Right, but it doesn't have to be special town meeting. There are other ways that it can
It's
be done.
possible. We just need to be careful that how we handle that. Like she said,
We're-
residents might want to say, that money's coming back to us. We want to tell you how to spend it.
I'd be just be careful about the precedent, because the appropriation, I know, not like I want another special town meeting either, but the town people actually put everything in place at the annual, and then if something's going to shift over the year, which it doesn't normally, they do need to weigh in on that.
Okay, but to be clear, we don't have a choice about replacing this door. It's not, the town people aren't going to weigh in on whether or not we replace the door, because our fire chief has said it must be replaced. It's an emergency.
Correct, but the town, what I'm saying is the town weighs in on the funds associated with it and where they come from, and allowing us to make the transfer of the funds.
But even still.
If there's a way
that's
around
Article
it,
2.
fine, but in general, that's what the town meetings are
I'm
for.
not sure how
However,
we get out of Article 1 now.
Okay, and then 3, is there some urgency? Obviously we want to get it done, but we could do that at the special town,
This
at
is
the
an
normal town
estimate.
meeting.
The 3,000 is a one-time fee to convert Northfield. He thinks he can hold that over till January. He suspects it would be higher, because you're going to ask the company that's going to convert our software, and they're not going to hold it the price till May. So it'd probably go up a little. So we would
And we would pay a
and the
full year,
assessment.
because we'd be starting on the full year, so they wouldn't be prorating also.
Right. Then we're going to prorate the assessment. It's $22.50 for each year for a full year, but if we join in January, obviously it's 5 months of that.
Right.
So the first initial cost, that's why I have an estimate in there, since we don't know exactly when we start. And the sewer, they want the engineering money so they can hire Ty and Bond for those, to get started on the work that needs for those grants that will be due in August.
I think that one alone is enough of a reason to have a special town meeting, because we need to move that forward any opportunity we
Right,
get.
because if they miss it and wait till May, there's no way between May and August they'll have the engineering done to apply for those August grants,
pay
which
for
means
the
we're waiting
grants.
another
Yeah.
cycle.
I just think it's one of those things, if you have to do one, at a special town meeting, you might as well.
Well, that's what I'm trying to fit them all.
Piggyback.
If we're gonna do one,
Right.
let's do one meeting. Let's not wait and see.
No, I mean, if you're gonna do a special town meeting based on one article, like we
Yeah.
can't get around
And
Article
they're
1, for
all
example.
fairly cut and dry.
Yeah,
Yep.
and
They really are.
explanatory.
And,
Okay.
Yeah.
all of them, we should be able to come up with funding. And here's the reason why Article 3, I wasn't originally, wasn't sure we could fund it even though we had requested that. We've had our free cash approval. So that means free cash is now expendable. Free cash and both the enterprise funds have been through the process. And the town of Northfield's free cash general fund approval is $928,634. Healthy. So that
So we can
means-
spring for the 3K.
I think we could handle. And then the enterprise fund for sewer was certified at $284,887. So
Yeah.
they're working on their finance and how much they want to spend and what they're doing. And the enterprise fund for is $323,261, which was a huge surprise to me since they spent $300,000 of it last year on an ambulance. That's very healthy. We were all kind of expecting to be in the 100,000 range. So having said that, those monies are available, but they have to be appropriated. You
But I
can't
don't see
spend it.
anything on here for the EMS. Do we need something on here?
No. These are annually done, the free cash.
Right.
That's basically draw a line at the bottom on June 30th and say, what didn't you spend?
Right.
And or in their case, what did you raise and not spend?
Mm-hmm.
And then now, once it's certified, because after July 1st, you can't spend any of this. You can't spend any money that you haven't appropriated.
Right.
Now we have this as an available source of funding. It's just out there. But that is one of the things we use at town meeting. Between this, stabilization funds, other sources of revenue. It's one of our big revenue sources. But it is available, and that's why I wanted to look for other pieces of expenditure at this time, not just dip into free cash. That's why using the overlay account, using the school funding we've already allocated and put on the tax rate, to do that, and transferring from the enterprise fund, that doesn't take our stuff, because we heavily use free cash for capital requests at town meeting in May. So I don't want to drain that.
Okay.
Pithy, so.
And there's going to be more information on the Article 4.
Yes, she's well aware. I told her that we'd be moving it till January, and then she said, keep me appraised, and so I will keep her appraised that when you're looking at it. If we're moving this to January, it looks like, right at the first week or two of the year, so you could sign this warrant much earlier and have it out there and available for weeks. 2 weeks is, you have to have 2 weeks for a special, but there's nothing that says you can't go sooner. So if you sign a warrant on the 9th, then your meeting could be the 30th, I don't know, I'm not looking at a calendar,
Yeah.
and you'd have, plenty of time to,
And I think folks would like to have more time to look
3
at
weeks, right?
more
Yeah.
more
2-3
rather
weeks.
than less. Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to keep this on your agenda. So you're seeing it and not surprising you with, hey, So you have a couple more meetings to review this and talk about it.
So it's evolving.
And, right, and that's your free cash certification. So that's the special town meeting warrant.
Sewer legislator meeting.
Oh, I was requested to give an update. So Mallory and I, and then Karen joined us a little bit late, but to discuss the history, this was when the legislators were here and said they wanted to have that meeting
To get all the
to
background.
get kind of the background, to get up to speed
Yeah.
at the macro level. So Mallory and I joined Comerford's office and Representative Whip's office to discuss the history and the next steps for their offices to assist us moving forward with sewer issues. So the sewer department, me, Mallory, Ty and Bond, RCAP, along with the legislators, and they've reached out to Representative McGovern's office, are to meet and focus on resources and necessary steps to avail ourselves of them. We're working with the engineers, working with RCAP, as well as Mallory, to expand what needs to be available for us to apply for grants. So now that they've got a picture, we stretched the net further to federal reps to talk about, get RCAP back involved, because they work on federal grants with water and sewer. The Senator's office is also reaching out to the MVP, Municipal Vulnerability Program, regional representative, to see what funding and grants are available through MVP that might be applicable. They also have grants because of vulnerabilities for water and sewer potentially. And the big meeting with everybody is scheduled for Monday, May 27th. So on the 27th, we have a big Zoom meeting with representatives of all those groups.
November
Okay.
27th?
Yep, next Monday.
Oh, I thought you said May.
I thought you said May.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, November,
Okay.
Monday.
Okay,
It's
it
like-
wasn't just me.
It's far off. I don't have to worry about that
I'm
for
stuck
now.
in town meeting mode. May 27th. I'm sorry, don't do that.
You did it.
You
Did
did
I
it!
caught that one.
All right.
November
27th.
Monday.
It'll be RCAP, the engineers, the representatives,
yeah.
the Senate.
At what time?
Well, it's a Zoom meeting, so I'll have to,
You know what I
it's
forgot?
Zoom.
And what I forgot to mention was
I have to look here.
you and I and Mallory and the Friends of Shell
3:00.
Bridge had the meeting with Senator Markey's office and Senator Warren's office. We did a presentation on the bridge project.
So
And
we can put that on
advocating
for an
for-
update maybe when.
Yeah. We should
So,
put that on the
um,
next one.
So
Okay,
that's-
and I'd like to attend this. This is an open meeting now, right? November 27th?
It's not a public meeting.
Okay.
So when you say open, I don't want anyone to
It's
think
not
it's
a
an
public
open
meeting.
posted meeting because there's no quorum of any board there.
Right.
So I just need to be careful if you guys want to attend that we don't hit a quorum.
I would like to
Because
attend.
once we hit a quorum, that's now a select board meeting and it's a whole nother
Yeah, ball game.
ball game that we're going to get into.
Okay, I would like to attend the November 27th Zoom sewer meeting.
Well, didn't you attend the last one?
Nope.
You have the link. but
I
you
was
missed it.
not, I didn't miss it. I wasn't,
You didn't?
when I saw the link, it was from Senator Comerford, and
Yep.
I hadn't been invited by Senator Comerford, and so at the last minute, I
Oh,
didn't,
she
I
was-
just didn't
she
feel.
was- Okay, she was told that you might attend, so.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't-
Yeah.
But I'd like to attend November 27th, I guess.
What time is the November 27th one?
3:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah, that's cutting it too close for me, so I won't be there.
Yeah.
Okay, so next, Emergency Services Regionalization Task Force. I'll give my points and then you can speak to the 1 point.
Yep.
So yeah, we've had several of those meetings. We just posted our third meeting. That takes place next week at November 29th,
Yep.
just prior to the Emergency Services Facility meeting, which takes place at 5, so 3:00 and then 5:00. The committee has been working with the consultant on the progress towards the January grant deadline. Mallory has attended and will be working with the consultant and the committee on the grant now. So we'll keep the board updated on the grant specifics. This is moving fast because the grant is due in January.
Yep.
And we've had a lot of discussion on operations and staffing, so that we would have some specifics about what we'd like to see in the grant. There is a discussion about moving forward as a request from Emergency Management Director, Chief, about an assessment for each town to consider. Each town, each and every town. That includes
Northfield.
because in the future, if you look at the study that was presented to you, the assessment model moving forward includes all of the towns. So there's some talk about taking a step towards that model, so that it's not a 1 year it's one thing and the next year it's the brick wall, moving towards that.
Yeah.
So if you want to speak to his request, I don't know if you.
Well, I think 3 points. One is the group is pretty well informed because they're all public safety officials, like fire chiefs
Select board.
and select board. So it's a knowledgeable group, and all of the towns are happy with the service. What they were getting at, kind of pushing the chief on, was what do you need in order to be sustainable, both from a capital standpoint as well as a personnel standpoint.
Yep.
So the answer to that is taking a closer look at personnel, and that's what we're going to be doing. I think at the next meeting, the consultant is coming back with some models, but really taking a look at our budget, because there are a lot of people who are working in EMS, but they're part-time. So if you took, for example, 2 part-time people and made a full-time position, so that they could get some more stability. And one of the areas that is not covered by a permanent person is overnight, between the hours of midnight and 8 a.m. So there's that.
That's that's the shift that I used to work when I was on the ambulance.
Yeah, nobody wants to do it, and it's
as
all
a
on
volunteer
call.
shift.
Yeah,
You're
as
not
a
covered.
volunteer
Right.
shift. So if there's a way to make it more attractive by actually having a position that somebody could apply for and have benefits, etc. So that's really what we're looking at. And there's also another person who effectively works full-time, but is not taking health insurance, I believe.
Correct.
So-
Is not interested, has them.
Which we need to take a closer look at, because you can't essentially have people working full-time and not be offering them retirement and things like that.
Well, we're paying the retirement.
That's right. We did move forward on that.
And
but
they've
he's-
been offered the help. We had to offer them the insurance. They don't want it.
Right.
Because they have a spouse that,
So,
Right, I mean, yeah.
so we effectively, they're not called full-time, but we effectively already have a full-time person.
it's in the budget and we're already paying for it.
Right. So we're going to have to, you're looking at me like,
Yeah, no,
this is all-
I'm confused about why, if someone is working full-time and they're getting retirement, if they choose to do health or not, how does that affect their full-timedness?
We haven't officially
Because we
created it as a
haven't
full-time
done it in
position.
the budget.
I see.
And we haven't made the commitment to the department to have those additional full-time positions to which we could be hiring instead of recruiting on-call people on
Got
a
it.
regular basis.
Right,
So
there's
that's
no-
where the stability
Right.
comes in long-term.
We have money in the budget
Yeah.
to do some of this stuff because it's been paid to the volunteers. Now, it's a slightly lower rate, but we're not talking significant. The problem is that we really need to start wrapping our heads around turning these into taking some of that money and turning these into full-time jobs, because you cannot operate completely on a volunteer model at the level that the service is operating.
And
You can
then-
have some volunteer and some staff, and we need to fix the balance to make it
I mean, but we
operational.
have been operating
It's-
and really excellently. And
Right.
what
Correct.
they said when they came, what the chief said when he came,
Yeah.
was that we have a couple of people who are doing a whole lot of the work.
Right, and it's not sustainable.
And
It's not.
but we don't want to foreclose the option of having volunteers because they're
Oh,
doing it.
No, and they're
No,
not
you
incredible
wouldn't do
job.
that. You
They're
just
not-
shift the balance.
We need some of each.
You have to shift the balance, because in order to commit, because we have this relationship with other towns, including Northfield, is what the study's really exposing is what do you need in order to become more stable, so that as you're charging people a fair amount for the service, which would be more than they're paying now, what do you need to do in order to justify that, one, but also so that the service would still be there and there's a service that they could pay for. I think that's,
And two,
yeah,
capital.
and capital.
They've put in a capital plan. They said, you can't just say, we're gonna just keep saving until we need a new ambulance and hopefully we have $300,000 by then. That's not how that model should work. At some point, you have to say.
Even
there's
though
a-
he's done a great job with that approach
He
to
did,
date.
he did, but you can't, that's not, you have to say.
It's not
This
sustainable
is how
for
many
the-
years out, the next one will need to be replaced. How do we build that into the model? So some of the model includes capital. We have some very expensive pieces of equipment that are,
Right.
we have power cots at 15,000. We have heart,
Your AEDs
Cardiac,
only last so
cardiac,
far too,
those
Yeah.
are
like all that stuff.
$40,000 each. You have to start thinking about, we bought them with CARES Act, COVID money, we've pieced it together, but ultimately, that's not sustainable either. So they've
Right.
done a fabulous job in sustaining, but on the backs of very few
right.
people are really,
Yeah.
we need to fix that.
Yeah, and I just want to push back just a tiny bit on the idea of people getting their value. They have been getting, the towns have been really getting, excellent service. So
Oh, no, they know that.
24/7.
yeah,
24/7.
You can't get that anywhere else around here.
Right, and they
Period.
do know that, and they've actually stated that for the record multiple times.
Yeah.
But the key thing going forward is, for all the towns, including Northfield, is if most of the model is really based on volunteering, then it's not sustainable for any of the towns. So maybe I should reword it that way. And this step forward is to say each of the towns needs to up their contribution to
Right.
it. So,
And trust me, we've looked at the contributions other small towns are making.
and this kind of pales, like,
It's paling in
I
comparison.
think Mark has requested 25K from each town, and one example that we have is for,
Ashfield,
it was 93
93,000 they're paying
Wow.
for
For their
ambulance
service.
this year.
And they're considering doing, I obviously didn't attend the meeting, but they're considering doing based on call volume or something, right? Waiting.
They're
There's
working on
4
the-
different models.
They're working on
Yeah.
that now. That'll be part of what the grant also helps do, is to solidify that. That's part of what the grant is going to do. Talk about the different models, because that needs to be addressed. All the communities need to come to an agreement
And it
on
could
that.
be, there's like 4 different
There's
options,
EQV,
different, different
population,
percent- yeah,
call
different-
numbers,
in the meeting.
some
Right.
combination.
right. And we were kind of talking about, for example, with the EQV model, how that affects Irving differently than it does the other towns, so.
So that's all under consideration, but the grant is, would go in January, and that's part of what would get paid for.
And the thinking too is, on the grant then, this makes a fairly strong, I mean, we have a fairly strong case as it is, but as the towns are stepping forward and upping their contribution to the service before they have to, that would look really nicely on the grant application as well.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's really the
For them
preparation.
Just to show that the communities recognize that if you're going to move towards this model,
Yeah.
that there's some skin in the game for everyone.
So each of the select board members got the info from Mark and making sure that we're bringing back to each of the select boards, and each of the select boards is having a discussion. I think the advantage with Northfield is Northfield's much more familiar with EMS because it's been in our department and we've had to he's come in and done updates on a regular basis. Probably going to be a little bit harder of a sell, or more education will have to happen in the other towns. So
They all have different situations.
yeah, so we'll volunteer as needed to go. Anyway, so that's the update on that, and that's at the conclusion of 2 meetings, not several meetings. That's 2
No, it's
meetings,
2
and the
meetings,
third one is
done very
next
good,
week.
and the third
Yeah.
one is next week. Moving fast.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, I have a request from you to think about this for a warrant article. I had to turn it in prior because they were due, but I won't pursue it if you're not interested. I would like the select board to consider
Oh.
allowing me to purchase tablets for your meeting materials. As you can see by the mound of paper on your desk,
Yeah.
we are processing thousands of pages. And we print it because we don't know who may or may not have their technology with them. Also, I think it's a liability to ask select board members to use their personal technology. We've been through open meeting, we've been through all of this. That maybe we should move to tablets. Tablets aren't that expensive. The reason I don't have a firm number yet is because I'm looking at the different systems under which you guys would potentially be able to do this. You would also be able to keep your previous meeting materials for reference, so we wouldn't have
That
to
would be
keep piles of
huge.
paper. And I'm working on what this process would look like, because there's different opportunities, so that might move between $300,000 and $400,000. I've estimated $400,000, but this might be a little cheaper. They would be years. It would be years. Since you all have
Wait, I'm
email-
sorry. Did you just say 300,000 and 400,000?
between $300 and $400 per tablet.
Oh, okay. You said 100,000. I was like,
over the years. No,
Okay.
no. And
That's like
since
a
you all get an
building,
email
right?
with the full app on
Yeah.
it, you'd be able to put access to your email on the tablet, which then loads the full app. So you get Windows, Excel, all of that would be on
So
your
would we
tablet.
get Teams on it so that?
Well, we can talk about what
Okay.
will be on it, but that's that comes through our phone service. So,
Okay.
But anyway, I
Yeah,
kind of had an epiphany a few weeks back when we were talking about all this material and how much we had to print, and I said, we got to stop. So
And
I don't
told-
have the full details yet, and I will before
Yeah.
this obviously goes to town meeting, but I wanted to put it for the board to see if you had interest before I went any further with my research on it.
is there any ARPA money left?
No. So,
I'd say we table that one for when we have the other members. I'm on the fence.
Yeah.
I have my own, but
right, but we just want to make
I'd
sure
rather
that
not use my own
if-
for whatever reason.
and if we go forward with other select board members in the future, do we go to this system? So that there's 5 select board members get issued one, this is what they use. I can't guarantee who will ever have one or have one in the future. Plus everything you put on there technically, where does it cross the line to being searchable or open? What has he got on his own personal? I want people having to get away from using their own personal equipment.
Yeah,
Sarah's
I would like
expressed some
to.
concerns with what happened with her, so we could get away from doing that.
I like the clean split. I think
Yeah.
logistically, First of all, I don't know, how is a tablet $400? I think they're more
Oh.
expensive than that.
Oh, no, we're not getting iPads.
This one's 300. There's an iPad.
Oh, really?
There's an iPad. It's
Oh, okay.
There's
300
all
bucks.
sorts, because we're not going to have data plans. We're not. It's all going to be Wi-Fi.
It's all Wi-Fi, yeah.
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 Okay.
So no, they're less expensive than you think. There's all sorts of different tablets.
Okay.
So
Well,
anyway,
certainly, and it would probably save work with printing.
That would save a lot of money in staff time. I mean, honestly, this is such a waste.
I have to tell you,
I throw
thousands
sheets of paper away every meeting. It just feels so
thousands
wasteful.
of pages, thousands of pages we print in a year. We started to try and add it up. Some of the meetings were printing
Ink.
70 pages
Ink is so
times
Yeah.
It's worth more than
5.
gold.
Like
Okay.
reams of, and now I have a whole file cabinet drawer devoted to all of the
Some meetings were
paperwork
printing
that,
250 pages just for
Yeah.
the select board in
That's
one meeting.
crazy.
So we started to really think about it. And so, like I said, you don't have to make a decision tonight. I did submit it. I think it's not a huge expense. So I thought it was worth at least, and I will continue to look into it.
yeah,
I'm
thanks
just
for,
now exploring
thanks for that.
how it works. Multiple communities have done different things with how they put it on there. And so I wanted to explore that before I.
Okay.
I just, one further sentence on this. If we're talking about putting it on the warrant or considering putting it on the warrant, some numbers behind what's actually spent, what's spent
Yeah.
via,
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
spent for paper and printing and all that
Absolutely.
would go a long
Your
way
time.
to explaining.
Oh yeah, we pay per page at the end of the year. We get it. We turn.
But I
over
just
the
would,
numbers
you
and-
know, I
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
you guys know how I feel about
Well, we spend,
pinching the pennies and stuff like that.
We
so-
all feel
we
that
spend
way.
hundreds of
Yeah.
dollars.
Yeah.
At least. I mean, we'll crunch some more numbers to be more firm, but I just want, because I had to turn them in for last night, I just wanted to put something before you to express interest. If everyone came back, nah, I wouldn't move
I think
forward.
it's worth
the
exploring.
time you guys have to spend to prep all these materials and get them in front of us in neat piles and stuff. I mean, that's the hugest part. Like, if you're not having to do that, that opens you up to doing
And if
so
she's
much other
not
stuff.
here, it drives me nuts, because
Yeah.
I gotta do it. And I'm like, how does she get, because she's got the system
Just,
down.
just the sheer amount of paper too
Yeah.
on top of that.
It's so wasteful.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Okay.
And so I think as long as we can show
Oh, no, we
Show
have,
that.
Justify it.
Yeah. Justify it. I
Yeah.
think
you
that
can
would
see
for
some
sure.
of my explanation. I would just flesh that out with more numbers. It was
Yeah.
just the first stab at getting this in, because I wanted to make sure.
It's a draft. Okay.
Okay,
Dog.
the dog appeal. Okay,
I saw it.
let me give this to you. I've spent a fair amount of hours on this today, speaking with various different people. So, the court found and affirmed that the select board determination that Rio is a dangerous dog. So that's not in dispute. They reversed the euthanasia order. Okay.
Wow.
But place the 4 following conditions to be met by December 15th, or the euthanization will happen. 1, fully vaccinated. 2, licensed in the city where he will be kept. 3, the city where he's going must get 14 days notice prior to being allowed. 4, proof of $100,000 insurance ensuring the owner and the owner of the premises the dog will be housed at. So, we only got that notice yesterday because they mailed it under postages and got sent back to the courthouse, and the courthouse had to send it out again. So we got it yesterday. I met with ACO Dragon today to discuss how to proceed on this. I wanted to meet with him before I talked to Mr. Kinsella.
We did not go lightly there. I did not go lightly there.
No, and you can read the
And
decision.
I'm not saying that you guys did, but this is shocking to me.
Well, when you read the decision, you can get their logic. And by the way, I've already talked to ACO Dragon and
Deputy Dragon.
Sandra. We're going to make you a very different flow chart for these hearings.
Yeah.
We're
Okay.
going to literally walk you through, because they've made it very clear.
Yeah.
They wanted you to go through every one of the decisions on the dangerous dog, even though you went too quickly to euthanasia. You didn't like that. You didn't discuss
And also,
muzzle. You didn't discuss
Nuisance.
all
Yeah,
the different
all of
things.
the.
So we're going to go through a flow chart now that will walk you through any future dog hearing.
Okay, so I don't know if each time this dog bite scale that I've referred back to like 3 different times now, I don't remember what it was called back in the day when I had the training, probably like 2003 on this stuff when I was in the academy. But I remember there being a scale. It only went right around 5. The scale that I've been looking at and kind of referring to has a 6-point scale. 6 is death. 5 is what we encountered in this
Right.
circumstance. A 4 was a bite without a rebite, and then a 3 was kind of like the one that we just had in the last dog hearing with the bike. A 2 was a very light bite, and a 1 is a bite with no contact. It's just literally a bite. I'd like to know if there's something like that applies. If you can talk to
you can
Kyle
look-
Dragon about that. Is
You
there
can look
some
at the
sort of
Mass General
scale?
Law. Mass General
That's
Law
it?
walks
Yeah.
you through the
He's
6 or
not-
7 things they want you to go through.
And the clerk magistrate was not disputing the
Yes.
dangerousness.
Oh, no.
What
Wait a-
he was saying to Alex and me on that day, and what is shown here, is these oftentimes, most of the time, get overturned because of technicalities, because you did not go through determining nuisance, determining
whole
each of
process.
the levels before you got to the final number
Right.
6 with euthanasia. So it has nothing to do with what we determined. It had to do with the way in which we determined it.
Yeah. It
And
was
that we did
process.
not, that we went directly, just kind of like, do not pass go. We went directly to number 6, assessed that based on all of the facts. So he's agreeing with that. But
Wants you to go
he's
through
saying you
every
have
step.
to go through the procedure in order for the decision to stick.
To go all the way up to
Didn't
euthanasia.
dispute
Right.
the facts,
So-
found the dog a dangerous dog, didn't dispute any of that.
Yeah. So I
But
guess
he said that's common. He's been doing it for 12 years, and that's very, very, very common.
So we also
what I
look-
want to know though, so I get what they're saying that we're almost building a case from the ground up, but when you establish a violation of law, you're fulfilling elements, okay? And in that dog bite scale, there's certain elements in there that say a 5 or a 6 is there's literally no other recourse other than euthanasia, because the dog has to be
Yeah.
basically kept so inhumanely confined and everything else that it
Right.
cannot experience a quality of life. So it's like, I get what they're saying on that end, but if we
Well-
have these serious bite incidents, and like these professional rating scales
If you
say you can't do anything but
If
euthanasia.
you read
euthanize
this
dog.
order, the dog has to be on leash, muzzled, or in a contain, or out, he's outside, he has to be on leash and muzzled, or in a pen with a roof. I mean, that's it. That's what this order ultimately says. So that even technically precludes letting the dog out in your backyard unless he's on a leash.
And the backyard has a roof.
Yeah.
Right, it has a ceiling. You can't let the dog. So anyway, so we're gonna work on having a much more tailored thing to take you through every bit of the process and the findings, which we think you should start with, based on what the judge did here. Follow the template. So anyway, I got Mr. Kinsella's address and phone number. I got Mr. Kinsella's landlord's phone number, and I will call and verify that he's currently a tenant there, because I think it's important to make sure you didn't just get a phone number. And I will have been working with Mr. Kinsella back and forth today on a valid insurance policy. What he sent me after I read it and looked at the clauses did not cover his dog, even though it was a $100,000 policy. Made us send him back to the drawing board. He's getting another policy, which will be, because I looked at the cost and I said, there's no way for that amount of money that dog is in that policy. And I went through it, and sure enough, it says, yes, I have a dog. And then it says, your dog's not one of these breeds, is it? And it goes through this whole list of breeds. And it says, no. The answer is yes.
So he
when
lied on his
checked-
application?
Well, I think he talked to someone over the phone. And somehow, so I said, no, that's wrong. Go back to the drawing board. So now he said,
Completely
I'm
irresponsible
going to get a
dog
more
owner.
expensive policy. But it's like, my family. I said, fine. I said, when you send me proof of that, then once I'm done with that, I will verify with the regional dog shelter
Yeah.
that he has met the conditions on our end, and they will work with making sure that the dog is vaccinated and chipped, because it says in there that the dog has to be traceable. So vaccinated, chipped, registered at the new address, because that can likely be done online, before they will release the dog to him.
Yeah, the conditions are, page 5 is pretty detailed.
Yes. So we're in the process of working on that, because he only has until December 15th to complete this.
He
And
has to satisfy
technically by
all
December
4.
1st, I should be notifying the community he lives in that this dog is coming, to make that 14-day window.
I'd be interested if
So-
this clerk that signed this clerk magistrate who signed this, could tell us in detail, maybe this was asked within those hearings, but how can these detailed stipulations be expected of this dog's owner when the simple things that would be common sense type stuff that you would do as a dog owner, and since such an incident's happened, weren't done. Like the confidence level that this person is going to be able to do these kinds of things is zero in my book.
We were kind of disappointed that he didn't require the dog to be fixed.
Jeez Louise.
He didn't
Yeah.
do that. So we can't enforce it. But so we're
Great to
working.
see the justice system hasn't made much time
So
of progress in
we're
my
working-
time away.
We're working on the process the way it's
A
written
joke.
here. We're working through the process, and that's the best we can do.
Wow.
And if he doesn't meet these 4 stated conditions prior to 4 p.m. on December 15th,
The dog will be
be euthanized.
But he filled out an insurance application and didn't check off that the dog was one of the dangerous breeds.
No, I know. So if he
That's
doesn't,
So I haven't told the
She's in the position of-
he's clear yet until he supplies all of that. And I'm going to call tomorrow. I'll call the number that I have for the landlord and say I'd like to confirm that this person is a tenant at this address.
Yeah.
To just confirm that because I have to know that dog's going there, because we have to notify that community that this dog is coming per this order.
All right.
So we're working through it.
Would it be possible to, I have, my dog had actually surgery, and I need to get home to give him his medication on a certain time, which was 20 minutes ago. So I was wondering if we could maybe table some of the, not essential stuff, because some of the policies here I want to talk about, but I really need to. We've been going for a while.
We have, and I have to be to work in about 7 hours
Oh,
too for the
just
snowstorm.
have to
So
be careful if we skip. The policies have been waiting for a long time, but some of these things really do need to be done. We've been holding the 2 job descriptions forever, and they need to go through the classification process. He's short a highway guy until he can advertise.
I think
that
there's
position.
some on here. So policy definitely requires, I think we should move the job descriptions forward. The votes on closing the cemetery,
You have to do that.
reading the
don't you?
ban, those are straightforward. And then
Yeah,
the
let's
rest
do
of this
those.
are like,
Oh no, I have to have you vote to
yeah,
for the reimbursement for the asset management plan. It's due
Yeah.
November 30th.
yeah.
So
Both
can
the-
we start with vote to close cemeteries and go down? And skip the stuff above it?
You're gonna
not
skip
skip
the
it,
job descriptions.
move it to next.
I can't.
meeting.
He can't hire.
We can't.
He's down a plow driver. If I can't hire that job,
are there
So-
changes to it?
it's a completely new job.
Okay.
He's making a new concept for this, a true grounds and maintenance position that will take on other building sites, including helping rec with maintaining their fields and line painting. They would still retain some of the winter road plowing duties, possibly a smaller truck to do the parking lots and some smaller roads. And we need to approve it in order to move forward with the job description so that we can actually classify the job and advertise it. It's snowing tonight.
Yeah, and I looked at this already because I have a similar position, so I was just kind of
Does that
comparing
make
it to what
sense
I.
to you?
Yeah, I mean everything's
see
pretty
anything on
straightforward.
Does this handle the town hall as well, or is that
Yes.
still
I think
separate?
all
It's
buildings,
library,
right?
town hall,
Yep.
working with rec on there.
And when they're not doing grounds, they're doing other building maintenance stuff. So I mean, it's pretty well prescribed.
One thing that I'd like to see though is when you guys do your subcommittee with Andrea and Tom is walking through the schedules for the maintenance on all these buildings, right? So
I
that
think
people don't have to put
And I
in
think I added into.
I know,
one of
it's
the
always
duties
been in
to,
here to
declare.
have schedules for maintenance, and then it ends up falling on people to call
Yeah,
and
well,
ask
that does
for-
have that in here.
Yeah.
So it says
I just want to make sure
helps
it's
develop and
fulfilled.
maintain routine,
Yeah.
written routine, immediate
Yeah.
and long-term building maintenance schedules. So let's make sure we see that through with Tom.
Yeah,
Let me write
I'm
that
putting
down.
that back on you.
We got to get another meeting with him because we
Yes.
haven't done that in a while.
Yeah.
That's, I'm thinking of Lois too, because the building maintenance position was her baby. All right, so I move that we approve the position of building and ground maintenance laborer for the highway department.
Motion.
Was there a schedule change that you were, did I misunderstand?
No, she's schedule on building, like the preventative maintenance schedule on the buildings. She just wants us
It's
to
in
mention.
the job description.
It's in the job description that that person would develop the schedule because we don't really have anything in
Concrete
writing
now.
that says we're going to do this to the pellet feeder and this to
Or
this
just
part of
things
the
that
building.
that
like-
every spring and fall,
Okay.
we clean those.
And that's here.
it's in this job,
It's in
yeah.
the-
Okay.
It, just to
Under essential
clarify, it's
functions.
in the job description. I want to make sure it's actually fulfilled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, we've had it.
No, the schedule isn't in
We
here.
were kind of like skipping
We'd love
around,
to-
and I'm like,
We'd love to have one.
there's a lot of history, so
Okay.
yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
All right, so second on that.
Yeah,
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
no.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 So I'll get
Boom.
that classification group out. Does anybody want to work on that classification process?
Sure, I will. I love classification. Or do you want to
No,
do
you
it?
do. Go right
Okay.
ahead.
I just
I don't want
love
to take
the-
that away from you, B.
I usually have one select board member. And this, B's going
Yes.
to do the classification on the
I love the
building and grounds
classification.
maintenance. The wastewater superintendent, she's pushing forward because she wants it classified because she can't put it in her budget.
So this has been approved by the sewer commission?
Yes, they send it to me.
Okay.
So what we do is once you guys approve all the job descriptions, then I can put it through the classification that gives it a step and grade, and then they'll know how much it goes on the scale. They can actually put the budget in their,
Yeah.
the amount in their budget, and
This
they're
is holding her up
chomping at
from
the
the
bit
budget.
to finish the budget.
Yeah, I've been attending the meetings, so I'm familiar with,
Yep.
with that. So I make a motion to approve this job description for Assistant Superintendent of Wastewater Treatment.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And who wants to do the classification on this one? B, you seem to be classification specialist?
I'll do the classification. I was just don't want to hold Sarah back from getting
No.
the fun of doing a classification.
It's really exciting. It's pretty routine.
It's like a game.
Um,
Okay, that's the way I do it. All right, and the vote.
So if you're gonna move off the policies, can I just make one note though?
Yes.
These were all the edits that were approved. for
At our
these-
last meeting.
Correct.
Yep.
At your,
No, because I haven't never seen the
lawyers
town
knew.
lawyer.
No, that was my point. The town lawyer access policy is your first look at for draft and comment, so I wasn't looking for you to vote that tonight. I'm looking for any comments to bring back for future review. That is a new policy. I was not looking for,
The
for that to be,
rest, the
agreed
rest
tonight.
have been through us.
Public policy,
Yeah.
citizen concern, electronic mail, you made those changes at
Well, and I
your
think,
retreat.
but when we just talked about having, I was looking for the piece of paper, we just talked about having the tablets. That has to do with what's on page, expectation of privacy, because the town reserves the right to monitor, review town equipment. So then that's town equipment, so,
Yes.
so that's that.
Yep.
And then the other thing is that the social media policy will be on your next agenda because that was one we wanted to send to the attorney, and I actually just got it back today, but I didn't put it on the agenda anyway.
Okay.
So that will be
We should do those
joining
with
the public
everybody.
participation, citizen concern,
Yeah.
electronic mail. You guys reviewed all of those, so I will bring you those 4 policies, hopefully for approval. And the town lawyer, I don't have, if you have any comments on it or whatever, please.
I just gave you mine. I can explain those. That
Yeah.
you're not gonna. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're gonna table the
We're gonna table all the policies.
table review and adopt
They're
policies.
coming back at you though.
Okay.
We gotta get them
Okay.
done.
Yeah, that's it. Just hopefully we got the other people here too to go
Okay.
So
through.
hopefully the December schedules.
Can I
tad
make
later.
a motion to close cemeteries for the winter? You want me to read it?
Yep. Sorry.
That's what we will. Just those dates. You can just if we voted. to
November 21, 2023. I make a motion to close cemeteries from December 1, 2023 until April 15th, 2024, weather permitting.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 You only have to read the winter parking and snow ban. You don't have to vote it.
Okay.
Sign that. Where is it?
It should be in this.
It's in the
same
folder.
Look underneath the red folder. You've doubled the red folders. Try that.
Hey, there we go. All right, I will read the winter parking ban / snow and ice removal notice. Snow on town streets. No person shall throw or cause to be thrown or put any snow or ice from any privately owned property onto any street, land, alley, or other person's property in the town. Penalty for violation of this regulation will be $25 for each offense. All-night parking
Should up
ban in the winter. This was adopted by the Selectboard on 12/23 of 1980 and amended on 12/14 of 04. Any vehicles left unattended beginning December 1st and ending April 30th between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. on town highways will be towed at the owner's expense. And the snow and ice removal on sidewalks. voted by town bylaw 625 of 97, Article 19. Snow and ice shall be removed from the sidewalks within the boundaries of the town of Northfield on the streets named as follows: Main Street, Holton Street, Parker Avenue, Highland Avenue, and Mount Herman Station Road from West Northfield Road to the Vernon line by the owner of land abutting upon said named streets within 48 hours following the cessation of snow/ice storm by mechanical or other means.
Now, remember, we do have
We have a snow crew.
a snow crew that does the sidewalks, the town center sidewalks. So much of that is old history, so. But
Okay.
people do blow their snow with their snow blowers from their driveway onto the street, and it's very difficult for the highway crew, so please don't do that. It builds up a big mound as it gets on the town roads.
Freezes
Yes.
into a big hard mound.
Yes.
Yeah,
Are we doing the vote to approve for reimbursement filing?
yeah, we need to do that.
Yes,
I make
the
a
trust fund,
motion
yeah.
to request from the trust fund committee
Oh,
to
we're back
reimburse
one.
$2,941.46 to reimburse Loaves and Fishes for emergency funding.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then
And
I
we-
need you to vote approval for reimbursement filing for the Department of Environmental Protection for Asset Management Plan. And the question is just to vote to allow me to sign the paperwork to file for the reimbursement for from the Department of Environmental Protection.
And they'll reimburse us.
Right, they're waiting for a signature, and the whole report's there, and they'll let me sign it, but
So,
Is that, and that's
Peggy?
not the job of the sewer commission?
no, it's the select board and their designee.
Okay.
Bee signed the original one, but she's not the chair anymore, so they said, it's not gonna
Right.
be your chair, then you can vote to have your town administrator, because it's the reimbursement, it's not the
Okay.
grant. So I just need that so I can sign the proper paperwork. It shows the board voted to allow me the authority to file for the reimbursement.
so I move that we approve the reimbursement filing to the Department of Environmental Protection for the Sewer Commission's asset management plan to be signed by the town administrator
As the select board's designee.
as the select board's designee.
Second.
Does that
Motion
work?
and a
I
second.
mean,
Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I vote that we.
Move.
I move, sorry. I'm literally reading. I move that we take the 350th surplus and move that to the Recreation Department, specifically 2 tents and a marquee sign.
Second.
Motion and a second for a donation. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I move that we approve the time off request as submitted.
There it is.
And there's dates attached.
You already
for
took a
work,
look at
so-
it, B?
Yep.
Okay.
Am I supposed to sign this
No,
one?
just
No,
for your
it's a
review, we're gonna
vote.
vote.
Oh, I had this right? Isn't
We
this the
just
same
don't
thing?
say
Yeah,
the
you do.
We just
details
don't wanna
out
say it
loud.
out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I have this.
On that, can we just make sure that, like, with our like we get the calendar invite, so I'm not
Yeah, we were gonna try to.
sending you
we
something
were
when
gonna-
you're supposed to be on vacation?
Yeah, don't worry about it, I get called by all
I
of
know,
you.
but I don't want to do it if it's avoidable.
There are times that I'm listed work, so we're working out how to figure out how to get that maybe in your calendar schedule. is the
Okay.
same. So you'll know specifically when I'm on work, although
On and off.
you can certainly send it to my email and I'll just answer it at
Yeah.
that time. So,
Okay.
Okay, motion and a second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Sarah did.
Topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in
Nope.
advance of the
I have
meeting.
one announcement.
This letter, this email?
Which one is
What is
that?
that
Oh,
one?
that may just be for information purpose, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know, it was in the pile and we haven't discussed it.
That went with the.
Oh, district agreement?
Oh, that
was
came with the
yeah, that was
school,
with
it was
the
an
school's
email that
packet.
she sent, so.
Okay, it was just part of
I
that.
just want to
Okay.
state that the legislation on Skip's retirement has passed. I've notified Skip and told him that we would put it on the next agenda for the select board to reinstate him as chief, and that I would be bringing back the fire department policies on the same day.
All right.
We just got notified.
Until when? August of 2024?
That'll be your vote, because it expires after that.
Okay.
And I'd like to have him come and do the policies at the same time,
Okay.
because we need to get that resolved.
Yep.
And you've done the stuff with the lawyers?
I've done everything with our lawyer, I've heard nothing from him. So I've reminded him when I sent the email
They were
that I
doing
haven't heard
something
from
with
there.
their lawyer.
I
Yeah.
understand, I'm just saying, until that, we need to, until that happens, I think that has to happen first. before
Sure.
we can do our final things
You
because,
may be waiting a long time then.
okay,
Yeah, that's why it goes on the agenda.
okay.
It encourages them, let's put it that way. It's been about a month, so 3 weeks, so
It's
it's
time.
time to.
Yeah.
All they need to do is notify me with the person's name and I'll send it to our attorney and they can talk. I just haven't gotten that.
Okay.
Okay, I wanted you to know what happened.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
No committee board appointments. Proposed agenda items. I think we've got quite a long list. Does anybody have anything?
That six
burning?
town thing,
Yeah,
Our six- I have that right here.
added that.
okay.
You already
And
added
you can
that.
certainly always
The
send me another one.
discussions,
Yep.
unanswered questions that I have, all that stuff.
And you're gonna bring up the, well, we're gonna.
Oh,
do
it was already here.
It's already on December 5th,
Yeah.
if you notice.
Outstanding.
Six-town regionalization update.
Good.
Any
Thank you,
recognition
Lois,
for
that
service?
Yeah. So Karen Boudreau, I have been going to these meetings, and she has been working so hard, hours and hours and hours and hours, to try to get this sewer situation together. And I'm just really grateful because I don't have the time or the energy to do the stuff that she's been doing in that realm. So kudos.
And I think without her advocacy, it wouldn't be making the progress that it is. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Despite some disagreements, she's moving toward a good cause. So
Yeah. I think we still, I had asked for that at the last meeting for another round on going through the sewer details, like that.
Well, I'm sure we'll have her back. They're
Yeah.
doing budget right now, so.
Right.
could I hear a motion to?
Well, just one other quick thing.
So
Recognition for service,
Yes.
sorry. I just want to thank Mallory because the meetings with Senator Markey and Senator Warren's office went really well. And she did all the prep.
It was presentation. with
She
all
got
the-
she did the presentation, got everyone to, from the town, from Friends of Shellbridge to speak. So everyone was included. And now she's working on an infographic. So we can act, because they were just kind of like, this is like too much information. So we're trying to get it on 1 or 2 pages.
They can pass out and have in their offices too.
Right,
Yeah.
so they can.
Excellent.
Super important.
Yeah.
Yep.
So she's done a great job setting up that, those legislative relationships. And then I would move that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
There you go.